Perfect. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming here to Christiansborg today. It's a very serious issue that we will be discussing today. Clean water is a prerequisite for life. We humans, we need it for drinking, but we also need it for the food we eat. And animals and nature are also in need of this clean water to thrive. Clean water is essential for everything, basically. And here in Denmark, we've been privileged for a long time. We basically pump up the water and send it out to our citizens to tap it from the faucets directly at home at the sink. Might not be as simple as I'm describing it right here, but it's been a political goal for many years and for most political parties that our drinking water should be protected and that we should be able to drink it without having to purify it or chemically treat it before we use it. And it's something I believe that most Danes are actually very proud of. But over time, the idea of pumping up the water and drinking it without treating it first has come under threat. And this is, of course, a very relevant topic of this conference. In the past few weeks, the Danish newspaper Information has focused on this topic, and I'd like to share a few of their findings. First, the newspaper revealed that the cost of cleaning up the use of the pesticides that break down into TFA, a PFAS that we will be discussing a lot today, could cost as much as 4 billion Danish kroner per year, the cleanup alone. A few weeks ago, they revealed that 40% of the fields where the future groundwater is deposited is sprayed with pesticides. And just 2 days ago, they revealed that when the authorities back in 2021 assured the public that the TFA in the groundwater probably did not come from the pesticides, it turned out that they had overlooked documentation showing that the pesticides that break down into TFA are actually being used in Denmark. And in the same period, from 2021 to 2024, the sales of these pesticides escalated. So recently, our environmental minister has banned 33 PFAS pesticides, and this is great, but they're still allowed to be used until the end of next year. And other PFAS pesticides are also still allowed. We simply need to do more. We cannot wait any longer. We owe it to our children to fix this before it's too late. So today we will receive valuable information from many competent people, and I'm looking so much forward to that. And now I give the floor to Christian E. from Green Transition. I hope you enjoy the day, and again, very much welcome here to Christiansborg. Thank you.
Oh, I still have a problem with this one. Sorry. I need some help. Sorry. Thank you to Claus to be our host today. Thank you to Claus to be our host today from the Parliament. I will welcome you all on behalf of the organizers, which is Green Transition Denmark and Pesticide Action Network Europe, who went together to make this conference. And will you please shift the? Yes, thank you. In Denmark, we often see ourselves as leading the way on environmental issues. This is true in some fields, and in other fields it is not true. But I'll start up by saying that in three aspects, Denmark has led the way concerning pesticides. The first is that we traditionally had more strict demands to the approval of pesticides regarding protection of groundwater. We have problems now, which Claus also mentioned, and we'll come back to that, on the PFAS pesticides. But traditionally, Denmark led the way on this. The second is that Denmark for many years has had a tax on pesticides, and this tax was increased in 2013, and at the same time the tax was changed so that it became dependent on the load, the effect on health and the environment of the individual pesticides. And the third is now that just recently Denmark has banned most of the PFAS pesticides, those with the best documentation of the hazards, but still we need another group of PFAS pesticides, which other presenters will come back to. But what is also important to say is that it is necessary that Denmark has a more strict politics on this, because Denmark has the most intensive agriculture in all Europe. What we need to do is to have more organic agriculture, where we totally get rid of the use of pesticides. But at the same time, we also have to improve the conventional agriculture in terms of reduction of pesticide use. And this includes integrated pest management. Which, please, next one. Can I get the next slide? Good, thank you. This is part of the Sustainable Use Directive from the EU, who has defined 8 principles for integrated pest management. Here I just mention a few of the most important elements, that we need more crop rotation in order to use less pesticides. The farmers need to identify pests and monitor the population levels of the pests. We should prefer non-chemical solutions to pesticides, and we should use spot spraying. And this is important that this is combined with the previous one about identifying pests, that you should only spray where you have seen the hazards, where you've seen the pests in the fields. Then we need to strengthen the ecological infrastructure, and other speakers will come back to that. The Sustainable Use Directive and the IPM principles must be fully implemented, and we see that it should be mandatory demands. Next, please. The last one, we should be careful with how we use the words, and careful how we read the statistics. A large share of Danish farmers today use what we call precision spraying. Thank you. This can be the same as spot spraying, which I mentioned before, but most often it is a much more narrow use of technology. For instance, the use of a GPS on the field sprayer, and not what I mentioned before, that you have to monitor the pests before you spray, and only spray where there are attacks from the pests. We need more studies, and we need goals for pesticide reduction and the registration of the actual reductions. Also in terms of implementation of the integrated pest management. the use of pesticides have been reduced in Denmark, but this reduction stopped around 2015, and now we need to do more to have further reductions. The present reduction goals refer to what I mentioned before, the pesticide load, but here we have to take into consideration that this pesticide load only takes into account those risks for health and environment that are recognized. Only the known risks. We also have to take care of the unknown risks that are not yet acknowledged, and therefore we need to go beyond this so-called pesticide load. We'll come back to all this. This was just an introduction. So these were my words, and again, welcome to all. And did Lea Freeman arrive? I didn't see that. Okay, then we'll have the next speaker on the program. And I should introduce Michael Skov Andersen, who's now, from now on, the moderator. So welcome, Michael, and thank you for being our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I have a microphone here.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, President. Okay, so I will be your moderator here for the first part of the conference, and it's great to see that we are so many here. I can see we also have about 35 people with us online, so I think this promises well for the conference. And I should turn this on, of course. Yeah. So people online can also hear me. So welcome again to everyone, and I understood that Lea Freeman is not here yet with us. So we would go to the next speaker that we have in the program.
Who's online?
Lisbeth wants to leave earlier, so it's good that Lisbeth starts.
Okay, I understand from the organizers that we will take the presentation now by Lisbeth Knudsen, who is a professor in experimental toxicology at the University of Copenhagen. Yeah?
What?
Yeah.
No, because from the commission, the commission.
From the commission.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what is the? Has to leave after that.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I think we sorry for the confusion here. I think we will take Claus Behrens. I see you are online with us.
Yes.
Welcome here to Copenhagen. I think it would be very welcome to take your presentation here as the opening of the conference. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And indeed, I appreciate that I can speak now, as I have another meeting immediately afterwards that I need to go to. So I will try to share my presentation. Let me just see whether I can figure that out. There. And then I need to go into slideshow. And I need to change the display. Good. I hope you can see the slide now fully on the screen. So I was asked by the organizers, and thank you, first of all, for the invitation to speak. And I apologize that I cannot be in person in Copenhagen, which was simply not possible due to my agenda constraints. And I was asked to speak about the topic TFA in waters, PFAS pesticides, and a bit the suit, but the previous speaker has already commented a bit on that. For those of you who don't know me, I am Claus Behrens, the Director for Food Safety, Sustainability and Innovation in DG Health and Food Safety of the European Commission, and among others responsible for the legislation on the placing on the market and use of pesticides, in the future also the suit, and but also maybe important the legislation on contaminants in food, where PFAS are also an issue. So, as a bit of a context, I wanted to recall that in the big PFAS restriction proposal under the REACH regulation that 5 member states have prepared, and that is under at the moment under discussion in the European Chemicals Agency, the substances used as active substances in plant protection products or biocidal products were exempt, because the dossier submitters reckon that we have specific legislation for these and can deal with them appropriately under that specific legislation. And indeed, for plant protection products, this is Regulation 1107 2009. It is definitely among the strictest, if not the strictest, worldwide. Active substances are subject to rigorous risk assessments, and the approvals are also periodically reviewed. The criteria for approval already consider persistency, toxicity, and bioaccumulation, as well as water pollution, both surface water and groundwater, which are the key properties of concern for PFAS substances. Also, the criteria are very robust in the sense that substances that are carcinogenic, mutagenic, or toxic to reproduction, or endocrine disruptors, or persistent organic pollutants, or PBTs, or very persistent, very bioaccumulating, they are not eligible for approval under the EU rules unless very, very narrow derogation possibilities are met. And also pesticides that as compounds themselves or relevant metabolites that pollute groundwater above 0.1 microgram per liter, they can also not be approved for use in the EU. The situation on 1st of October this year was that we have at the moment 31 active substances that are falling under the definition of PFAS. 9 are so-called candidates for substitution, which means that the member states can only authorize products containing them if no reasonable alternatives are available. For one of them, the approval will expire tomorrow. It's mentioned here on the slide, the name. And one is a PFAS only under the extended OECD definition, but it belongs to a group of substances that are excluded from the REACH restriction proposal because it doesn't contain a molecular moiety that leads to the formation of TFA when metabolized. For 25 of these 31 substances, the renewal process is currently ongoing. And for the remaining 6, the renewal process will start in the future. For 2 of them already next year. I would also like to mention that over the past years, as a result of the strict criteria to which I referred, around 20 PFAS active substances have been removed from the EU market, either because their approval expired and there was no interest in applying for a renewal, or because we actively took a decision to prohibit them after an evaluation. And most recently, this was done for triflusulfuron and for flufenacet. Exposure and risk of active substances and their metabolites, such as TFA, are assessed as part of the evaluation under the Plant Protection Products Regulation. We look at exposure of humans via diet, but also non-dietary exposure pathways. We look at exposure of non-target organisms and indeed the environment, including in particular surface and groundwater. Now, looking specifically at residues, the EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority, every year publishes reports on the monitoring results of residues in food and feed, and over 80,000 samples are analyzed every year by the member states. And they looked in particular at the occurrence of the PFAS substances in the period 2011 to 2021. And they found that in 99% of the cases for fruits and vegetables, there were no quantifiable residues of PFAS substances. The possible formation and uptake of TFA in crops and the environment and the possibility for contamination of groundwater are assessed, as I already mentioned. And if we find in the assessment that there is a potential to lead to pollution above the 0.1 microgram per liter limit, and this cannot be mitigated via appropriate measures to reduce exposure, then the substance cannot be approved. And indeed, as already mentioned by the earlier speakers, concerns around TFA have grown over recent years, and there are also challenges regarding its detection in standard regulatory studies, and this is being followed up, as I will explain in the next slides. And for TFA, it's also important to recall that it is a substance that originates from multiple sources, not only pesticides. For example, refrigerants or blowing agents used in industrial production and emissions therefrom lead to atmospheric deposition via rain. Then there is pollution from factories itself, from wastewater, from liquid manure. And then, of course, also there is a contribution from the plant protection products from the substances, the active substances are PFAS. But I want to emphasize that the PFAS in pesticides are clearly not the only source of pollution. The exposure routes and the sources and the importance of the different sources may vary between the member states and even within areas in specific member states, depending on the nature of agriculture, which kind of industry is present, and very important to underline also that TFA is found in areas where there is no use of plant protection products. I've mentioned here on the slide a study conducted in Switzerland in that regard, and also a report from Denmark from last year concluded that precipitation contains TFA at a concentration between 0.2 and 1 microgram per liter, and is indeed a major source of groundwater pollution. Then for TFA also at the moment, we have a process for harmonized classification and labeling under the chemicals legislation ongoing. And the deadline for the European Chemicals Agency to deliver its opinion is 26th of October next year. And we have in the meantime already asked also the European Food Safety Authority to reassess the toxicological reference values for TFA, and the public consultation on the draft assessment was already carried out, and EFSA intends to finalize its output in February 2026. We have also sent a second mandate to both EFSA and ECHA, particularly focusing on the formation of TFA in soil and water. Our colleagues from DG Environment have signed an agreement with the World Health Organization to determine the relevant PFAS in drinking water and recommend health-based values for those relevant PFAS. And we've also launched, again, DG Environment has launched a study to analyze treatment techniques and their related costs for PFAS and TFA, and in particular for their removal from drinking water. So what are we planning to do next now, in particular in relation to the PFAS active substances in pesticides? We will continue, as I mentioned, all the ongoing evaluation procedures, where in addition to the active substance itself, the metabolites, including TFA, will be analyzed. And we believe that a case-by-case approach is needed, since the formation of TFA varies depending on the substance, depending on the soil that is prevalent in the different regions of the member states. And the conclusions from the mandates that we gave to EFSA and ECHA will be integrated into these ongoing assessments. In the meantime, and this is a general principle of the Plant Protection Products Regulation, the member states are entitled to take action to amend or withdraw authorizations of plant protection products containing PFAS if they have indications that they are problematic in terms of pollution of the environment or for human health. And in the beginning, it was already mentioned that Denmark has taken action in this regard by withdrawing a number of authorizations for certain plant protection products. We also continue discussing this topic with the member states in the standing committee, And also Germany and the Netherlands have already approached us, suggesting early reviews for the 6 PFAS substances where an evaluation is not already ongoing. Then a quick word also on what we are doing under the Sustainable Use Directive, and the previous speaker already referred to that, so I'm not going to repeat everything, but very important is indeed that after the rejection of the proposal for the sewer regulation, the Sustainable Use Regulation, by the Parliament and its subsequent withdrawal by the Commission, we focus now again on a better implementation of the SUD directive, because in particular, as mentioned by the previous speaker, the potential and the possibilities of integrated pest management are not fully implemented and not satisfactorily implemented in most member states. And what is also clear is that farmers need help and support, in particular via good advisory services, and also having a toolbox for plant protection available that allows them to effectively protect their crops, and preferably a toolbox with better alternatives than some of the chemical pesticides that are today used still a lot. We are also measuring progress towards reducing use and risks from chemical pesticides as part of the Sustainable Use Directive. And for that purpose, harmonized risk indicators have been agreed by the member states that are a bit different from the ones that Denmark uses in its national context. And this indicator and the latest data for 2023 show indeed a significant progress already in the reduction of the risks from pesticide use, as measured by this indicator. And on the slide, and I've made the slides available to the organizers, they can be shared with everybody. You have a link to a website where more information is available on this. So as I said, and this is my last slide, we have resumed activities with the member states to work towards a better implementation of the Sustainable Use Directive, in particular, better implementation of integrated pest management. We want also in changes to the plant protection products regulation that will come as part of a so-called simplification omnibus in December. We want to increase the availability of biocontrol and other low-risk solutions so that farmers have faster access to these and can replace more harmful chemical pesticides. We are also clearly looking at the potential of digital tools and precision application to reduce exposure from the use of pesticides. That was also already mentioned by the previous speaker. So this is clearly an area where a lot is happening at the moment. And we strongly believe that farmers need support via better advisory services. Again, I think Denmark is a very good example in this regard. And last but not least, we have also proposed to simplify regulation or legislation to bring new plant varieties on the market that are produced by new genomic techniques, in particular those that are resistant to pests, so that fewer pesticides need to be used. And we know that the Danish presidency is a big fan of the proposal and is doing a lot to get the negotiations with the parliament over the finishing line. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. On this slide, you have links for some further information that you might wish to look up. And again, thanks for the invitation to speak at this conference and explain what we are doing in the area of PFAS substances used in plant protection products.
Thank you very much for this very concise and clear presentation. It's obvious that it's a very complex issue, not only from the toxicological point of view, but also from the more management and administrative point of view. I hope you can stay with us just to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Yeah, I still have 25 minutes that I can stay with you. Yep.
Okay. So I would like to invite questions from the audience. And please present yourself with name and affiliation and short questions.
I will try to make it short. Thank you very much, Klaus, for the presentation. I'm Sissel Dykker from a Swedish-based environmental organization called Kempesek. And I work very much with the universal PFAS restriction proposal, where, as you said, the pesticides have been excluded, as we said, that there is other legislation that can take care of the PFAS in the pesticides. So I would just like to know, now that you presented all your work you do and the development in new authorizations, new risk assessments, new scientific studies, what would you see if you look at the crystal ball for the next 5-10 years? Will we still have PFAS, including the TFA forming PFAS in pesticides in 5-10 years, or how do you see the development in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, my standard answer to these questions is forecasts are notoriously.
We'll take one more question for you before.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, then I need to take notes, otherwise I will forget.
Are there more questions here from the audience? Yeah, here in the front row. And present yourself.
Yes, it's Angeliki Lysimachou from Pan Europe. Hello, Klaus, thank you very much for your presentation. There was one issue I'm thinking when you say that you are going to look into the PFAS pesticides substance by substance. And I wonder, I would propose that this is a good opportunity to implement the precautionary principle and maybe not go substance by substance, but apply to all the potential precursors of TFA. So what's your views on this point? Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll pass the floor to you, Klaus Behrendt. One about the crystal ball and one more question, please.
Yeah, the second is also a bit of a crystal ball question, but my standard answer to the crystal ball question is forecasts are notoriously difficult, in particular if they concern the future. But when we look back over the outcome of the assessments in recent years, for the PFAS active substances, they were mostly negative. So there were always problems leading to a proposal from the Commission for non-renewal of approval, either because of the water pollution with TFA or because of other properties of the substances, such as substance being an endocrine disruptor or other problematic areas that were identified during the risk assessment. That said, we have one case on the table at the moment, which is particularly problematic. It's fluorotanyl, because the outcome of the assessment is indeed not very good. But on the other hand, the farming community, in particular the potato growers, are basically saying without this substance, it is not possible to grow potatoes. And I think this is also an issue, and maybe the speakers from Denmark after me can also look into that. But also in Denmark, this is a problem at the moment in relation to this particular substance for this particular use. And that brings me to, and then therefore my forecast for the next 10 years, or where will we be in the next 10 years? My expectation is that for many of these PFAS under evaluation, in the end, the outcome of the risk assessment might be negative, but maybe not for all. And as mentioned in the example of fluorotanyl, we might have situations where for some of them it is extremely difficult to renounce to them completely. And that brings me to Angeliki's question. Of course, we know that this is your request, Angeliki. Your organization, PAN, has written to us already on many occasions on this and also launched an Aarhus request for an omission to act. So we know that you would like this, but we are of the firm conviction that the regulation foresees a substance by substance assessment. And as I mentioned in one of my slides, not all substances have the same properties in terms of what toxicological properties they have and what metabolites they generate and in what amounts they generate the various metabolites. The conditions are very different, and also the needs for a particular substance are different. So we believe that it is appropriate to continue with this case-by-case, very thorough assessment. But again, my expectation is that in many of the cases, ultimately the outcome might be negative. But then we also have a firm basis for adopting a decision that will also stand in court in case a company launches action against a non-renewal or non-approval decision.
Thank you very much for these replies. I'm not sure there are more questions from the audience. We can take one more question here. And please present yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Poul Henning Petersen from Danish Advisory Service for Agriculture. I would like to ask you if you think there could be other metabolites which in future will be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not fluor, TFA, but you can imagine other substances.
Mm-hmm. Yes, metabolites are a wide area and also way beyond the PFAS substances, also for other active substances. The question of what metabolites are generated in the environment, in the soil, in plants, maybe after human consumption, or when animals eat feed with residues of pesticides, it's really examined for all cases in great detail. And yes, there are probably also other metabolites that are problematic. They are the so-called relevant metabolites because they have toxicological or ecotoxicological properties of concern. I cannot name you now one that would be comparable to the TFA that is generated by many of these PFAS substances, but I do remember that the pyrethroids they also generate certain types of metabolites that are shared across different substances, or the triazoles, fungicides, they generate metabolites that are shared across different substances. And in each of these cases, we have done what we are now doing also for TFA. We have tasked EFSA to look at them across the board, in particular in the area of residues or indeed water pollution. So yeah, there are families of substances, and it's not so surprising looking at chemistry, that have a tendency to generate similar metabolites, and they indeed might be problematic. And maybe just one more comment on that, if you allow. That is also one of the reasons why we believe very strongly that the future of plant protection in Europe must be much more bio-based, biocontrol-based, which is one of the motivations for proposing in the forthcoming simplification package measures to accelerate the assessment and coming to the market of biocontrol pesticides, which we still need to define also as part of that, because at the moment there's no full alignment on what is considered to be biocontrol or not.
Thank you very much, Klaus Behrendt. We have a very tight program here at the conference, so I think we're coming to an end here, the Q&A. But again, I would like to thank you very much for taking time to contribute to our conference here in Copenhagen. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. And good luck for the rest of the day.
And so we can go to our next speaker here, and I already announced you a bit earlier, prematurely, Lisbeth Knudsen from University of Copenhagen, and I see your slides are coming up.
Yes, the next one, please. I am a professor at university, and I'm going to speak about these topics. I'm independent of authorities, not engaged with any of them, and then I'm a certified toxicologist, just confirmed yesterday. These are my areas of expertise: 3 R's, alternative to animal studies, because I'm a toxicologist, and then I work very much in human biomonitoring, and besides that, I'm a chair of several ethics committees, which is also relevant in this respect. I would like to start with the question, why pesticides? Well, we would like to increase the yield. That's why they were introduced many years ago to a very large extent. because we now have hotels for insects, because as you all have discovered, we have very few insects today compared with what was the situation 50 years ago. And that's actually a problem. So that's why we have to make hotels for insects, and we have to make pesticides that are very targeted. And we may not even need pesticides, because the picture below the field is actually from an organic farmer in Jutland, where he doesn't use pesticides with big and nice results. Where are the pesticides? We already had the headlines of food, soil, and water. And then I came across very interesting data from the Environmental Protection Agency. They have a research program, and they were collecting hairs all around the country and examined the pelt, but also the blood and the urine and the liver. And they actually detected pesticides in the pelt, like tibuconazole. It's a fungicide. We find it in humans as well. Boscalid, also a fungicide, same thing in humans, and prosulfocarb as well. And the thinner, glyphosate, which is impossible to get rid of, was of course also present in the hairs. And this is actually a very good monitoring instrument, having the hairs running around in the fields, collecting what has actually been sprayed. And I know it's going to be used in new studies as well. One too much. Maybe you should do it. We have some cases of pesticide production in Denmark. Illegal in Denmark today, but Cheminova, which has been featured in a recent television program, produced tons of malathion and other forbidden chemicals, and still do. So the area around Cheminova in Harboøre Tange is heavily polluted. Same in Grænsted, where the other picture is from. So we have benefits from pesticides, but we certainly also have the opposite. Maybe you should just do the training. And this is from Information, which was mentioned in the introduction by Klaus, where they have depicted where the drinking water collection areas and where pesticides are sprayed. And it's not a very nice picture, because it tells us that it goes to the area where you are getting your drinking water. So that's one of the sources of pesticides. I ran a campaign for Danmarks Naturfredning some years ago with families. 5 families were enrolled. They were non-ecologic. They were having a traditional diet, but then they went to an organic diet for 2 weeks. And we collected urine samples before and after. And as you can see in the last column, the number of pesticides detected in the urine leveled down dramatically when you went for the organic diet. Well, that doesn't tell anything about health. Yes, it does. We know these pesticides are not healthy to insects, and they are not healthy to humans either. But going for an organic diet might limit your risk. Can you take the next one? Yes, that was the one I wanted you. The next one. Then we have some other data which I can present here with the most commonly used food groups where you find pesticides. And as you can see, you have something below the level of quantification, some above, and then some are even above the maximum resident level, which is set by the authorities. So don't go for spinaches in some instances, and tomatoes may also be filled with with pesticides. These data are from 2022. The next slide is from Europe, and this is waters, rivers, lakes, and groundwater, where you see the exceedings of thresholds of pesticides levels. Denmark is taking in a nice, no red color on Denmark, only something on the groundwater. But this is not a nice situation. We find pesticides residues in active drinking water, drills, sorry, it's only in Danish. This is done by GEOS, and you can see it's actually increasing. And next one is then from a human biomonitoring study. That's my field of research, where we collect biological samples and measure for concentrations or effects of different molecules, for example, the pesticides. Not yet, please. And this slide is from a big European study where we collected samples in the same way from different countries and analyzed for 3 PPA, pyrethroate. And as you can see, it actually exceeded the levels in children as well as in adults, but much more in children. And this was an eye-opener in our human biomonitoring program. I don't think we expected it to be that high. The next one tells us something about the use of pesticides. Actually, I think Lea would have told us that it is decreasing in Denmark in the latest statistics, but on the world market, it grows. And it's mostly herbicides, but also the fungicides and insecticides are on stake. Yes, there are really many kinds of pesticides, and you have to be very specific if you want to discuss risks of pesticides, because we have the mode of entrance and we have the chemical composition, and then we have a lot of other characteristics which need to be taken into account when you discuss them. And the next slide tells you something about the human effects. We spray the pesticides, it becomes present in the water stream, and from our studies of populations as well as animal studies, we find an increased frequency of neurological disorders. And actually in US, there are some cases on Parkinson associated to exposures to pesticides. We are not that far in Denmark yet, but I'm part of a proposal to study that further on Danish samples. Then we have respiratory diseases, asthma. But what worries us most is actually the reproductive health impacts. Because what we find in continuous studies of even different pesticides, because the pesticides we use in the northern part of Europe is different from what we use elsewhere, is some effects on the reproduction. No, too quick. Decreased fertility and also decreased quality of the children, and we may also have immunotoxic effects as well as something on the neurological side. Some studies indicate associations to ADHD and autism with exposures to chemicals, including the pesticides. And then, of course, we have the cancer, and we have endocrine disruption. And I didn't even write immunotoxic effects, but it should have been there as well. So the next one tells you about glyphosate, which is classified as a pesticide cancer, and we have a few others. And that's just to say that it's well recognized that some pesticides are carcinogenic. And the next one is a busy slide, but this tells you what is the pathways of pesticides and which kind of organs might be affected. And you have the different life stages as well, and you have the population variability. So it fulfills the full picture of getting into the body and have the possibility of adverse effects. And the next one shows you the adverse effects on children, which is what worries us very much. And we have some pathways of toxicity that can explain the way that the pesticides work. So this is the picture of what the risks are of pesticide exposures at the current levels. And you can see we have different abnormalities reported as well. We have nice Danish studies supporting this, mainly from Southern University in Denmark, but they are in line with other studies. And the next one is glyphosate, where you can just take the next one, glyphosate, which is a very specific inhibitor in plants, but it also works in humans. That's why it's carcinogenic. And the next one is more about the toxicity that we know that glyphosate actually inhibits. And the next one is a more toxicological one, telling you that all those terrible effects I listed, they are actually found at very low levels. And the next one is another one. That's a pyrethroid, which is actually in use today. It's synthetic, and the primary source for humans is in food, and it can be measured in urine and at concentrations that may be associated, when we get more knowledge, to irritancy, neurotoxic, and reproductive toxicity. The next one is tibuconazole. It's a fungicide, and it's also classified as having moderate toxicity and a risk to the reproductive effects. We find that in all our human biomonitoring studies that I know of in Denmark. Next one are organophosphates. Chlor-PFAS is forbidden, has been that for quite some years. It's neurotoxic, that's why it was forbidden, but it's also an endocrine disruptor. You can provide me with a urine sample. I'm convinced I can measure it. It's still present in Europeans and in Danes. And that's also the case for the next one, which was mentioned by the previous speaker, chlorothalonil. It's forbidden in Denmark, has been that for quite some time. And even though it has been forbidden for many years, we can still find it in blood, and it's associated to endocrine disruption. So that's the picture of some of the pesticides I know of in Denmark. The next slide is about the elephant in the room, the TFA, which is increasing during the years, not only associated with pesticides, but other fluorinated compounds. And as you can see, it's found in groundwater in Denmark in increased levels. And the next slide shows you how it looks. Very small, very active ionic molecule, which is found everywhere, in the rainwater, for example. We don't know very much about the human health relevance yet, but some new German studies have indicated reproductive toxicity. I have it in myself in the laboratory because we precipitate proteins with that compound. But it has some effects on the endocrine disruption as well. And the next slide is I borrowed from my colleague in Lund, and it's very difficult to measure. And he has set up a nice analytical method. But what you need to be sure is that you don't contaminate. And the next one are levels found in urine and serum all around the world. and you can see it has been traced in many kind of populations. And I know of some Danish data also showing the presence of TFA in urine. Yeah. And this is something about the pathology pathway, which tells you that the pesticides can affect many different kind of pathways. And the way forward in approving and forbidding pesticides might not be big epidemiological studies taking many years or big animal studies, not necessarily looking at human relevant effects, but we might rather go for in vitro test with organoids, and even better in silico test, where you collect all the data you have, and then you try to see whether you can tell something from the new compound. And that's actually the new way of classifying pesticides. And I think I have one more. Yes, my final point. It's not easy for the different boards to collaborate. In Denmark, we have the environmental board. They are concerned about the environment. They do all the approving and detecting exercises related to pesticides, but they don't care very much about health. And that should actually be part of the Board of Health work. Unfortunately, they have closed down all their activities related to environment and health this year due to lack of resources. So we are in kind of a limbo related to environment versus health. And in the middle of this slide, I could have written food and agriculture, which also plays a role. And maybe I'm not the one to answer whether this also is the case in the EU, but maybe it's the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for so comprehensively covering many issues and substances and challenges that we're facing. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions to Lisbeth Knudsen. There are any questions? Yeah, we have a question here. And please present yourself and short questions.
Thank you for a very nice presentation, which should be also...
And your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sibylle Kyd from Organic Denmark. And yes, once again, thank you for your presentation. I think really it is an alarming presentation. It should really make people think. I'm interested to hear, do you also make research in cocktail? Do you say cocktail effect?
Yeah. It's difficult. When you do human biomonitoring, you get everything. So you may, in fact, take human sample and not just only measure the components, but also test their endocrine disrupting effect. Then it will be the effect of the cocktail. Some of my toxicological colleagues at DTU, they test mixtures of, for example, azoles, fungicides, and see whether they have a cocktail effect, implying that they add on to each other. You can't just consider one of them, but you have to consider the full cocktail.
Okay, and we can take a final question to Lisbeth Knudsen. There are more questions here on the front.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm a journalist and talking about the different agencies in Denmark and their different perspectives. Do you think that silo thinking within science and health is a big problem, and can we do to...
I didn't ask for that question.
Okay, could we do to solve it, and what solutions could you point to?
That there is silo thinking within the universities. We keep our projects for ourselves, even within the same university. And that's a pity, because we have different qualifications and could actually work better together. That's one issue. Better science, better teams. But for the ministries, it's definitely also my experience that they work in silos. I was a Danish National Hub coordinator of a big human biomonitoring European study, and we had all the agencies in that, and they were sitting in each country and pushing the questions around. I know that the PFAS issue has brought them tighter together. In fact, and that's what they're saying themselves, that they have come to talk to each other. But then today we learned that the food agency is cut dramatically. So maybe that would cut this collaboration. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisbeth Knudsen, for taking time to contribute here.
Thank you.
We're very grateful for your presentation. And now I have learned that Lea Frimann from the Ministry of Environment has arrived. I was told, yeah. So we'll give the floor to you now, and we hope we can reserve the last 5 minutes for some Q&A also with you. So I will give you a sign when your time is more or less up.
Thank you. And thank you very much. And I apologize for coming late. I was called for the minister and I couldn't say I'm going now because there was a question I had to answer. So please apologize for me to you. I will tell you a little bit about the different things about the pesticides and especially on the PFAS. Could you have my slides on? Yes, thank you. Just, I'm sure that you have already heard about the proposals we are waiting for from the Commission on biocontrol. It is, as you may know, is expected for December, and it is to innovate biocontrol solutions. And as Klaus said, we need to have a definition of that because not all natural substances are safe. We all know natural substances which have different toxicology things that they are not so safe as at all. So we need to have a quite clear definition on the biocontrol because that is important for the toxicology part. And it is, of course, important for us that it is a limited proposal because many people want to change the pesticide regulation in EU, maybe not in the same way we want to have it in the future. But I think that you will hear more about that when the proposal from the Commission comes. Could I have the next slide? Can I change myself or no? Just as you also heard from Lisbeth that the use in Denmark is quite different from other countries. Not only that the amount used, but also how many substances are approved in Denmark is quite low in relation to other member states. And that is not only because of the companies, it's of course because the regulation in Denmark is restricted in a way that you are not allowed to use a lot of pesticides because of the groundwater. And as Klaus said, that they are concerned about the relevant metabolites, but we are also concerned of the other substances. For the reason for that is that if you don't know the effect of the substances, why should you allow them? And that is actually what is going on in EU. They are not having studies on those substances, and they are allowed in more concentration than the active substances. So that's why in Denmark we are also regulating substances which is not relevant in EU terms. And that is actually why the figure from Lisbeth showing that we have a lot of pesticides in Denmark, it's not because we have more than other countries, it's because we measure pesticides They are not we are measuring substances which is not taken into account in EU and in other countries, and we find them in the groundwater. And actually those substances are banned now, but that is the reason for the figures. It's not that we have more problematic substances in Denmark. It is also because we measure substances they are allowed in other countries. And just have to actually say about what Lisbeth said about chlorothalonil, which is in food, because it is in Denmark has been banned since 2000, but in EU the ban was quite recently. So of course you have got the substance via the food in many years after it has been banned in Denmark. So that is why you will see differences between the countries. In Denmark we have a pesticide load indicator. It is a way to measure what pesticides is on the market and how they affect the environment and the human health. No, go back one. Yes, and it is a part of the political agreement. And here you can see how it has been changed during the years, and you can see that in 2022 there's a rise in the load. At that year we had a new political agreement deciding that now we should have a stronger regulation on the tax. So we changed the tax, so there are higher taxes on the most problematic substances. And before it went into force, of course, someone bought a lot of those substances. So that's why also that you can see that in 2022 we have a higher load, and then it's going down again. We don't have the figure from 2024, but we expect that it is going down again because we have seen that the tax reduction, the tax increased some of the substances in that way. And then, of course, what is going on the approval and bans of different substances will also have an effect on the pesticide load. Then you can change to the next. In general, there is a focus on PFAS in Denmark, and we are part of the countries which have made a proposal for a ban for PFAS, and in that proposal, which is going on the REACH dossier, there are active substances and plant protection products, also medical products and biocides are excluded from that proposal, but the co-formulants in plant protection products are included in the EU proposal because that is chemicals which is not approved in this regulation. The regulation on that is not finally come true. It is still under evaluation on the chemical agency, but that is one way we have pressed for the PFAS. In this proposal, it also was said that the Commission should update the pesticide regulation so that the use of active substances that are characterized as PFAS should be limited as much as possible. We haven't seen that proposal from the Commission yet, I can see. Next slide, please. But the PFAS in pesticides in Denmark, we started the investigation on that for many years ago, where we found the PFAS widespread in Danish groundwater, and I know you will hear more about that from Denmark. At that time, it was seen very large geographic distribution, both in agriculture areas, also in nature areas, and we know that other substances, as the refrigerants, are also a source of TFA, and the trifluoroacetic acid was as found in rainwater in Denmark in a concentration at about 2 microgram per liter. So we know that the rainwater is also a source of these substances. But at that time, also a research report from from our research program was started, and it was published in December 2024, where it showed the formulation of TFA from 5 active substances in PPPs currently approved in Denmark, and also 2 which was in the meantime not approved in Denmark. And on that, because of that, the Danish EPA had reassessed the 6 active substances, the 5 from this report and 1 from an EU report, where the approval from the active substance in EU showed that TFA also was found. And on that ground, we have now the Danish EPA has banned 33 different products with the PFAS pesticides in Denmark, and there is no alternatives for many of them. So when the Commission say we cannot ban a substance because there is no alternatives, that is not what's said in the pesticides regulation. There's no in the pesticides regulation that you can say we are not going to ban substances because there's no alternatives. And the Commission may say that, but it is not a way, and it is not in the regulation. So when we have a risk for the pesticides, we mean that we are obligated to act on it, and that's why the Danish EPA has done a lot of work to assess all these pesticides, and now they're banned in Denmark. And I know it is a big problem from the farmers, but the right way forward is not to allow the pesticides, it is to try to find alternatives. For that reason, we also invest a lot of time in helping with a way forward to find these alternatives. Safe alternatives, we can substitute these PFAS pesticides, because we think that is the right way forward. And of course, this ban will have an effect on the pesticide load in 2026. So we can say about that in 2027 when we have the data. But of course, they have a way forward in that connection. Then I just want to take us a little bit broader view on the PFAS and other pesticides. It is so that under the Danish presidency, we have reached an agreement in the Council and the Parliament on the Water Framework Directive's priority substances, and in that way we can say that we have get new way for regulation these substances. We have included the TFA in the total sum of PFAS. It is very important in connection to the surface water that you have to measure in the surface water. So you have to have TFA included in that in the future. And there's also for pesticides set in some value for the surface water, and that is also included in this regulation now. And also, as we had already in Denmark, where we had a sum of 4 PFAS in our drinking water regulation, now it is also in the groundwater directive a sum of the 4 most problematic PFASs. We also have had a limit value in the groundwater directive for those. It has not been there before. So in that way, we also try to look outside Denmark and try to also see what we should do on the EU regulation on the Water Framework Directive. And then also in connection with the Danish presidency, the Commission came with a strategy for water resilience. It came in June, and Denmark as presidency took up to make a council declaration on council conclusion on those. And in that in that process, we also could get the PFAS inside these conclusions. So you can see here, this is the text from the conclusion from the ministry. It's not set in the strategy from the commission, but we have underlined that it is necessary to look into the water pollution from PFAS as one of the substances which is important to act on, and that we think also is a way forward to say to the Commission that we need to have action on the EU level for the PFAS. I think that was my last slide. Yeah.
Thank you very much for bringing us up to date with the regulatory framework, the regulatory developments, and even some political developments towards the end. So I would like to take, actually to begin with a couple of questions, and you can respond to them. Do we have a question from the audience? Here. Christian Ege.
Yes, thank you. And you didn't say much about integrated pest management in the Sustainable Use Directive. I would ask you about the situation in Denmark as we see it. Some more quantification about how many are following the IPM principles and how much are they doing? Have you any plans to improve the registration and to make it public? How much has been done in order to implement the integrated pest management principles in Denmark?
And you can pass the microphone. There was another question.
Yes.
And please present yourself.
Yes, I'm Angeliki Lismacho from Pesticide Action Network Europe. So first of all, thank you very much for all the initiatives you've taken, and we really welcome that you took an action on PFAS pesticides. We know that you are protecting waters more than other member states, but we really welcome this. But then coming back to what we heard before, that the European Commission has to go substance by substance, and then seeing the approach of addressing a group of products together, this is what you do. And is it something that prevents like other member states to do that? I mean, evidently you did it, so it's possible. What would be your point of view there? And also if the Commission can or cannot ban group.
First of all, on the integrated pest management, all farmers in Denmark are obligated to use the integrated pest management principles. It is stated in the regulation. So that is it's not voluntary to use the principles. What is difficult is to measure what they are doing. About for that, one principle that they have to substitute to less harmful pesticides, that we can follow with our indicator, and we have the tax to make it happen in the real time. But what is difficult is some of the other principles. But what we have done in Denmark is that the farmers have to fill in a scheme, and the data from that is in the Danish EPA. We don't have a way forward, a decision now how to publish those data, but that could be an issue in a new pesticide strategy if that is decided. But we have data from the farmers on what they are doing for the integrated pest management, and they lots of them are doing many different things, and I know there's examples of one on some farmers with this have been substituted on different projects from the Danish EPA, and they have shown a lot of things they are doing for this. But it is difficult to stand in the field and see if the farmer was there 2 days before to see if it was necessary to spray this day. We cannot control that. We have to say this is a way the farmer shall be educated to have in their way to manage pesticides, because we cannot control in the real time what they are doing. We can control what they are used, because they have to say to us what they have been using, and we can see how the development is, but we cannot look into the fields when they are spraying. It is not possible. Maybe in the future we have satellites and looking all over Denmark what is actually going on, but we don't have that. And about the approval in EU, the Danish EPA has asked the Commission to re-evaluate all the PFAS pesticides. If they do so, I don't know, but we've done what we can do to make it happen. We have already for several substance group had this group approach in the approval system. We have in many years the Danish EPA has seen on the triazoles, where Commission is asking EFSA to do something, but in Denmark, when you are having approval on the aerosol pesticides, they have to take into account that all those substances are contributing to the same metabolite. So you can do that as a member state, because you can say that you are not allowed to use this pesticides if you use this pesticides in the summer. Then you have to use another one in the autumn, because in the same year you have a maximum level of those pesticides you can use. So it is possible. We have done it for many substances in Denmark, and the Danish EPA is looking into that. When we have substance group, we have the same metabolites. So in that way, it is possible.
Okay, thank you very much for these clarifications. We have a very tight program, I'm afraid, so we have to go to our next speaker now. But thank you very much for making it here, despite the minister making a claim on you.
Yep.
And our next speaker is from Pesticides Action Network Europe, Angeliki Lysimachou, who's head of science and policy at the network.
Okay, can you hear me? No. Is it okay?
It's very low.
It's very low?
Yeah.
Is now better? I don't get a green light.
Otherwise, you could turn off that one and use the microphone.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's better. Is it working? Yes, it's working. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. And thank you I want to thank everybody for organizing this this event. Pan-Europe, we are based in Brussels, and we are working to stop the use of toxic pesticides and replace them with ecological and sustainable alternatives. So with this meeting, we also wanted to bring our voices together with the partner NGOs here in Copenhagen, and of course, what a better place to talk about water pollution when we are surrounded by water. So we can start the presentation, I think. Is this the one that doesn't work? Yeah, let me see if it's working. Okay, great. So I do have a scientific background, but my presentation will be a lot about policy, because we want to put pressure into phasing out, as I said, pesticides, toxic pesticides in Europe. But I'm also going to talk about what we do afterwards. So once pesticides are found too toxic to be used in Europe, then European companies can still produce them and export them to countries where they have weaker environmental laws. So I really want to touch this subject as well. A lot has been said. We do have a very good pesticide regulation in Europe, so I'm not going to repeat this because it does give priority, as we heard, to the protection of the most vulnerable biodiversity, water resources, and ecosystems, and so on. And it is underpinned by the precautionary principle, and the way we understand it, this means it gives the power to policy makers, to let's say managers, to ban or phase out pesticides if they have suspicions that they are toxic. So they don't need to have the full, like say, proof. But unfortunately, the law is not implemented in practice. There are loopholes and there's a lot of shortcomings in the way it's implemented. And we see this because we have continuous reports coming out that they're showing that they're linking pesticide exposure to serious diseases in farmers, but also to residents in agricultural areas, as well as to the environment and its resources. And here I just give some examples we heard before about the Danish investigation, but here we have the French Institute, Health Institute, INSERM, we have the European Environment Agency as well, that they're showing like specific type of cancers like non-Hodgkin lymphoma, prostate cancer, but also Parkinson's disease, neurological diseases are seen in farmers, but also in children. So we have like pediatric leukemia and cognitive disorders. So it's really a serious issue. And here on the right, there is a project that the results are coming out now. So it's a very recent project. And again, it confirms that we are exposed to a mixture of pesticides, and there's an important non-dietary exposure as well. So there's a lot of reasons that we have to take action. Now, one of the pesticides we investigated was the PFAS. So they have escaped this very strict regulatory system on pesticides. So we actually didn't know about PFAS in pesticides, and we found out when the Commission started working on the restriction proposal, and they said, oh, we're going to exclude pesticides from restriction proposal because they're very well regulated under the pesticide regulation. And we found out that this was not the truth. So we calculated that we have 32 PFAS active substances that they are approved currently. Now they're 31, as we heard before. And when we looked at the residues of these PFAS pesticides in food and vegetables, we found out that they had tripled in the last 10 years. So we're actually not only banning these pesticides, but we are increasing exposure to them. And we say, okay, are they really harmful? Well, they are. 10 of them were already flagged as more hazardous, so we knew that they were toxic. 21 are highly toxic to aquatic environment, 2 are endocrine disruptors, and many of them are persistent. But what's very common with all these, almost all of them, is that they break down to what we heard before, trifluoroacetic acid, TFA for short, and this is how I'm going to refer to it, which is highly persistent. It just never breaks down. I mean, it will stay there forever. And when we looked at, okay, why is this happening? I mean, surely these pesticides, I mean, when they were applying for the authorization, they should have reported it. And we saw that no, that was not the case. In many cases, they were not identified TFA as a residue of these pesticides, or it was not flagged as very persistent. So next step we did was together with our members, and this is an initiative of our Austrian member, Global 2000, we collected surface water from many places in Europe. And here we have the number of samples we collected, and we found TFA in all rivers, and also all groundwater samples that we collected. So it was everywhere. And it was far beyond the permitted limit, according to the pesticide regulation, of 0.1 microgram per liter. Then we said, what about tap water? So we asked our members to collect water from the tap, from their houses. And again, we found it in 94% of the samples. So there we also looked for other PFAS, and it's indeed that TFA is the most abundant PFAS that you can find. And then we also tested bottled waters that they're supposed to come from really pristine sources that they are protected. And again, we found it, as you see, 63% of the samples. So it's really concerning. A next project, it was to look into the wine. And why we picked up wine? Because we can go to aged wine. So we went back to aged, really expensive wine from 1970s. And unfortunately, we sacrificed it for TFA analysis, and we didn't find anything. So, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see the numbers because they're quite small, but apart from around 2000, we start, like in the late 90s, we start seeing increasing. This correlates very well with PFAS pesticides. And then at the end, you can see after 2020, you have a lot of, all the wine we tested had TFA, sometimes like more than 100 times higher than what we have in water. So, and yeah, this work received much more publicity than a water report, I have to say. But it is really concerning what we're finding. We also detected it in cereal products. It is found in certain fruit and vegetables. As we heard before, it's also in blood samples. We saw the research. And that's why the scientific community is now raising alarms. We have to do something about it because the TFA concentrations stay there. So the more we emit, they're rising irreversibly. So they call it a global threat. Now, what I don't have here is, I don't have the correlation, because when we test the water, surface water, there was a clear correlation with agriculture areas. So we found high levels of TFA closer to farming areas. And a study from the German Environment Agency also found that the main pollution of TFA in water resources is pesticide use. Okay, so TFA is toxic. Okay, it's less toxic than some other PFAS, but it is toxic. And we know that in 2007, we found that we knew since 2007 that it causes liver toxicity in rats because they've seen it in laboratory studies. And since 2021, we have more concerning results because we know now it causes developmental toxicity, so skeletal deformities and now malformations in rabbits. And also is toxic to reproduction and causes endocrine disruption, like changes in thyroid in offspring. Yeah. It's, as we heard before, it's now going to be classified as toxic to reproduction. European Chemical Agency is doing this work. But what's interesting here is we looked into these studies that were submitted from 2021, and we saw that the industry had a very different opinion on the toxicity of TFA. So they were downplaying the toxicity findings, and they were claiming that the adverse effects are rabbit specific, which is not true. And also they propose a safety value of 4 to 100 times higher than what the European authorities do. So maybe we shouldn't trust them. As we heard before, according to the pesticide regulation, we have enough to ban all PFAS pesticides, and this is what we are requesting. This is according to the pesticide regulation. We don't believe we should go substance by substance. We have enough proof to ban all of these 31 PFAS pesticides that are currently in the market. And we really support Denmark for taking this step, and we want other member states to follow. And as we heard before, for us, the solution is simple because, first of all, you can just substitute one PFAS pesticide with another non-PFAS pesticide. But this is not what we're here today, because we want to promote the use of non-chemical alternatives. This has to be the law since 2014. Member states have to use integrated pest management, which is an obligation by the Sustainable Use of Pesticides Directive. but this is not what's happening. We're seeing that it's not applied in many member states. So we do really need to support the farmers to do this transition. So this means economic incentives, and yes, and yeah, like make integrated pest management mandatory. And this will also help to protect our water resources. And that brings me to my second point. So as I said before, yes, we are banning some pesticides that are very toxic. So because of the new pesticide regulation, but then what happens, the companies keep producing them to export them to countries with weaker protection laws, where the impacts on the local communities are devastating, and the environment and ecosystems and water resources, as you can imagine. So a study that was published this year, it shows that last year we exported 120,000 tons of banned pesticides to non-EU countries. This is a 50% increase in the last 6 years. So you can see the pattern. There were 75 pesticides, among them carcinogens, toxic to reproduction, water pollutants, and so on. And more than half, they go to low and medium income countries. This means that the countries where many times the farm workers, they leave where they work. So this exposing pregnant women, children, babies into these pesticides. This is the map. I can send you the link so you can see these images. They're very impactful. And yes, so if we see the top exporters, we see Germany is #1, but then we have Belgium, Spain, Netherlands, and you have Denmark there as well. So it's the 8th exporter, according to the study, and it exports dimethoate. This is an organophosphate. It's a potential carcinogen, endocrine disruptor, and toxic to bees and birds. And then what happens is also, as a boomerang effect, many of these pesticides come back to Europe through pesticides in food, in imported food. And in a study we did in 2022, we found actually 52 banned pesticides in European food, which is sold in the EU market. A lot of that in our coffee and tea, but also spices and legumes. And when we looked like, why is this happening? We realized that we actually, it is allowed. I mean, we actually allow residues of 65 pesticides that are banned in Europe to be imported in food. Yeah. So we don't have to start from scratch. Because of all the political pressure, back in 2020, the European Commission did promise to do something about this and to present measures to stop the production and export of hazardous banned pesticides and other chemicals, actually. In the meantime, we have the UN rapporteurs for human rights and right to food sending out statements saying that this is an immoral practice. This is a modern world exploitation and has to stop. And we really welcome Denmark's letter together with 7 member states asking the Commission to deliver to this promise, which we're still waiting. So France and Belgium have taken the lead, and the Commission, the new Commission, did say in vague words that they're going to do something about it, but we're still waiting to see the concrete results. But they also did say that they're going to stop food, like residues in food imports. So yes, it was very interesting. This week, there was a Danish poll that was showing that 88% of Danish, they find this practice unethical and they want it to stop. So Denmark has the full support to even do a national ban, like to stop nationally the export of pesticides that have been banned in Denmark. And here we have also done a study that shows that it will have actually no economic impact, a serious economic impact to stop such exports. On the other hand, it will help like to boost the more sustainable agricultural methods, like non-chemical methods. And with this, I just have These are my takeaway messages. We heard about simplifying, and for us, simplifying should not result in deregulation. We need to strengthen the implementation of the pesticide regulation to protect health. We call upon the European Commission as well, the EU member states, to ban PFAS pesticides. We push for we call upon regulators to push for a sustainable agriculture model that protects health, water, soil, and truly promotes food security, because this is about food security. And finally, we call upon the Commission to deliver on its promise to end the export of banned pesticides. And also countries to take initiative at national level. And with this, I would like to close my presentation, and thank you. I realize I took a couple of minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's rare to see NGOs develop own investigations, but you certainly presented some thought-provoking results from those. We will have a panel later where there will be chances to raise questions to you, because we're now running quite a lot behind the schedule, and I know people here also appreciate to have their break. So I think we should go directly to the next presentation, and then please save your questions for Angelica for the break. And the next presentation is here from Dorte Skram from DANVA, which is the Danish Water and Wastewater Association of Public Water Workers.
Yes, it's working. Thank you. I would just start this by saying it's a tough job just before the break. Everyone wants a break. Thank you. Good introduction. Yes. Another thing is that I am not a scientist. I am definitely not. I'm used to study chemical engineering, and it's so long ago that I'm a stand-up chemist. But we're a Danish NGO. We have the Wastewater Association in Denmark, all the bigger water supplies. So I'm going to present to you a snapshot of what is going on in the Danish drinking, maybe more the groundwater is actually more. So I think that all these conferences and gatherings we're attending, it shows that we have a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of we should do something about it. Interesting. And when you go home today, you'll probably say, oh, this is very interesting. It was an interesting conference. But we would so much like to have some action. And we have a lot of knowledge that we already can act on. And that is what we need in the water sector and all other sectors for that matter as well in this one. So I'll just start with this one. Magnus Heunicke, our Minister of Environment, harmful substances threatens our drinking water. We cannot accept that. We accounted for 28.2% of the total load. We banned them. So that's action. For once, maybe. Wow. I have the microphone. Yeah. But 6 substances, 33 products, 28.2% of the load of pesticides. The 6, I wouldn't even try to pronounce it, but swift action. Yes, thank you. So this is all about, if we want to reduce this impact, the chemical impact we have on the society with all we do, you look around, there's so much chemistry. It's not just the TFA, it's not just the pesticides, it's everywhere. Even in the wine, we were talking about very old port. Maybe we could drink that instead. But it's indisputable. It's everywhere. It's also in the water. We have some fingerprints. We put them out in all of society. It's in the water. It's in the food. We brought them on ourselves. We made these substances to solve a problem, but we created another one. So that's very human to, okay, let's solve a problem. And there were substances we didn't know could be used for something else, but they solved the problem. The PFAS has solved the problem with the ozone layer. You remember the ozone layer, right? We don't talk about that anymore. They solved the problem, but they created another one. And the whole root of the problem is that
as the previous speakers are also saying, that there's a lot of things we don't know when approving these substances, a lot of things that we don't know when we look at, maybe we think let's trial and error here, but there's an impact. And before I go on, I'll just introduce you briefly. I know a lot of you know the Danish water supply, but just see, we're 2,700 approximately public water supplies, 9,100 approximately wells, 392 million cubic meter of abstracted water. I know for some of you who are from other countries, this must sound like a water living lab, but it's Danish. 6 million people, more than 50% of all wells affected by pesticides. And and 50% of analyzed wells affected by TFA. And that's not 50% of the 9,100 wells, it's 50% of the ones analyzed. We do not have, maybe from the last change of the drinking water regulation, and it's just new, so I don't know yet, but we don't have legislation that says we have to analyze the wells. Only if there's a problem with the drinking water, we go back and analyze the wells for the TFA. So that's why there's not so many analyzed yet. But Denmark as a country, 60% approximately, it's going down a bit, of the country is farmland. And we approximately need 5% of the country to groundwater protection. 99.9% groundwater based. There's a small island east of Bornholm that is desalination, but approximately 100. And as a rule, rule in the treatment is that it's aeration and filtration, time and space, and that is changing. I know some of you has a bit more complex day, but that's changing. The other one is just to show that the orange is from water abstracted for water supply, approximately 400,000 million cubic meters. But then we have farming and agriculture and gardener? Horticulture, yes, in the blue one down there, and there's fishing and artificial agriculture. Thank you. Yes. But that's not so much different, right? So the water is also in all of the sectors, also the agricultural sector that we say that we need to do this, we need to change something. But you also need the water. So we're in this together. We need to be solved in partnership. It doesn't. So as you can see here, as well in the Danish drinking water wells, we're in control. That was true. We told each other that in 2017. More pesticides and metabolites were discovered. Then came PFAS. Then came TFA, and then my hair turned this color. And now they're combined because the term PFAS pesticides, that's basically our biggest fears coming together here. One is that TFA is classified as a PFAS, and that's because in the regulation, if something is classified as a PFAS, the limit is low. It's not health derived. It's 0.1 something. And we know from the measurements we made that 0.1 something is very, very hard to reach. You showed it. It's TFA is all over. It's widely spread. So we would love that to be just a health derived limit. And since the sources are so diverse, it's not only, sorry to say, not just coming from pesticides, but of course that's something we can do locally, and so we're very happy about that ban. Then we have the persistent mobile toxic substances, and then we have the very persistent, very mobile, very toxic, as if the first one wasn't bad enough, then we have another one we add. So what's going on? We're talking about health, we're talking about people are buying all sorts of gadgets to live longer and more healthier, and we eat various stuff. But these substances, go ahead. You can buy any place for horticulture. You come and you buy your plants, and you can buy some not very persistent, but very mobile and very toxic substance. Exceed the limits eventually without any action. And that doesn't really matter what we set the limits as. The lower they are, the faster we will exceed the limits. It's widely spread. These are all statements from the European Association's publication on PFAS and TFA. And it has a compilation of data from maybe 26 countries all over Europe. But we must keep in mind that we measure less than 1% of PFAS through the targeted analysis that we carry on. We have a 99% miss rate. The intake through fruit is exceeding the recommended levels from EFSA. TFA in rainwater has increased fivefold over the past 20 years in Germany. It's the same in all of Europe. If we continue the use of PFAS without doing anything, the drinking water sector will face increase of 18 billion euros in treatment costs. And to top that, we can do it. It's very expensive. It's like the quote from this film that you can live on this, but it tastes like shit. You can do it, but it's very expensive. But it will also require 20% more abstracted water. We don't have that. We don't have that, not even in Denmark, even not with the rain. We don't have that around Copenhagen, the biggest cities. We don't have that. So it's very energy intensive. We also have some waste that we don't we cannot dispose of, and none of these solutions destroy the PFAS molecules. Also, the water after undergoing treatment is demineralized to an extent that you need to remineralize to meet drinking water standards. Not a sustainable green transition solution here. So these are just statements. Now we're showing this is analysis from the Danish Geological Database. We just presented on maps. These are all wells because we have more than the publicly water wells. We also have more wells than using for drinking water. This is just to show all the red ones are exceeding the limit. So it tells us that the problem is not so big today as it could be, but this also tells us that some of the wells have been closed. Some of the ones are used for investigating pollution sites. So this is the actual widely spread chemicals here. This is the same just for water supply, and you can see there are some exceeds the limits, but also the green ones are good, and the blue ones has never had any pesticides detected. So the picture is a little bit different, but it's still, if you compare it, it's out there, unquestionable. Yeah, you see, I'm told 3 minutes, but I have the mic, so yeah. What will you do? These are the PFAS findings. These are the PFAS findings. These are all the wells, also some closed down, also some for contaminated sites. All of this, I'm pointing at. Can I point down here? No pointing apparently. So, but all the wells from the geological database on PFAS findings, the limit is 0.1 micrograms, and above the 0.1, they're red. These are also old wells, and also contaminated sites, so it's not all the way through for drinking water, but these are all water supply only. And you can see, and that's a bit, I don't know if funny is the right word, but interesting maybe. We have hotspots around Copenhagen, and we have hotspots around Esbjerg, a very, very small island, Fanø. This is Denmark's smallest and biggest member. And then we have some contaminated sites drizzled over Denmark. But these are the 0.1 micrograms. This is what's going on. The more knowledge we gain on these, the lower the limits. And it's been going from 2006, where we started to investigate further. And then in 2022, we had the Netherlands and the Danish limits as the lowest ones you have in the European. But we don't think that this will stop. The more we know, the lower the limits for drinking water. This is from the Netherlands. It also shows that the PFAS is in everything. It's been told before today. This with the lines in is the drinking water contribution to the diet, the PFAS diet, so to speak. And if you see the lowest one, that's from surface water, drinking water from surface water, and this one up top is from drinking water from groundwater. So 6% of the diet is drinking water, and so it's 6% of the PFAS. But if you're in a country that has surface water for drinking water, you have 27% contribution from drinking water. So a regulation in drinking water, it helps, but it doesn't solve anything. We need to have some control at source here. This is an illustration that shows that if we continue without doing anything, the problem will increase. So nothing new there. If we do something, the problem will decrease. So that's so. Now this is an illustration from before Greater Copenhagen utility, one of the well fields, and it shows that the interesting is this table out here. Yeah, yes, and if you can see the TFA concentrations, and these are the wells out on the left, and on the right there's TFA concentrations. That you can see that the youngest groundwater has the highest TFA concentration. It's already been shown, but we see it every day when we measure young water, high content of TFA, and that's from rainwater. So even if we regulate everything else locally, we still have at least a European challenge on this. So we need help, and it's not. This is an illustration of the hotspots, TFA hotspots all through Europe. And it shows that we're not alone in this. This is over here is from Denmark. It shows the TFA findings, and that as you can see, there are no problems, but that's because our limit is 9 micrograms per liter. So we don't think that will keep on. It's everywhere. This is from, just to illustrate that it's widely spread. This is from Insa Drikkevand. It's a cooperation between how many? 9 of the big utilities in Denmark. As a total of 1/3 of the water that is distributed in Denmark is illustrated here. As you can see, that this one here shows that the affected water is about how many percentage? 90% of the water is affected by of PFAS or pesticides and metabolites. The green ones don't have anything. The lucky ones, I don't know which utility that is, but as you see, all the rest of them, it's very yellow, and that's because there's a problem. You have effects, and for some, it's about 100% of the water that they're distributing is affected. So that's not a picture we want to do. We're talking about what is clean water. Clean water is water that meets the limits, or clean water is something that's not affected. We can't have water that's not affected. It's not possible the way things is. And the sources are many, and the treatment possibilities are very, very limited. On the shorter the molecules, the harder to remediate. So what do you want? We want love. Everyone wants love. Food and a break in a minute. And then we want to have action is very imminent in this point. And as you can see, I want to thank all these. This presentation is not mine. I was just the one talking. I have been around and having help from Bo Lindhardt from Novafos, Liselotte from HOFOR, Oliver Löbel from Euro. I should say hello to from him, and Hans Peter Arp from a Norwegian scientist. And also, of course, we have the data from the Geological Survey in Denmark. So action, please, cooperation, maybe not cooperation, but partnerships. We can't solve this alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very factual presentation. We're short on time, but we have time for just one question, and I see a hand there in the back. And please present yourself and short questions, please.
It's Christine Clement. I'm from the Enhedslisten as political advisor. Thank you for your presentation. I think this is so scary. Just as scary as the slide you showed with the Halloween light and the bats. I want to ask you, with what we know now about pesticides being the source of TFA in groundwater, and the levels of TFA in the upper groundwater, do you think it's inevitable now that we will look into a future where we have to, to clean water, to rinse the water, to be able to use it as drinking water? But we still have enough clean water to kind of for two things out of the question of the problem.
Yes, for some, treatment is necessary. But as I already stated, the TFA, and by the way, the source is not only pesticides. That's a part of the source, but not limited to. The main source, we believe, still is the fluoridated gases from the air conditioner, heat pump, and all of that stuff. There's a lot of them going around. So that's the rainwater contribution. And then, of course, you have local hotspots from the pesticides. About treatment, I believe that treatment will be necessary for some, but that depends on go forth and act. That will help. And it will also help that in the EU system that we also act there, because I know that the PFAS total ban was one of the ones that had about 5,000 people stating that the PFAS they were producing, using, were essential to health, to medicine, to whatever. But maybe we think of it as a water sector, we think it's only essential for your income. And that's not good enough. So I think we have to be able to treat, so we need to innovate in the treatment methods, and we also have to be able to use the thinning out of the problem, because there are a lot of elements in this, and drinking water is only one of them. So I would rather drink the water than the orange juice. And let's just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this reply. We will have a break, and maybe you somehow killed the interest in drinking. And we will be back 5 minutes past.
Yeah.
Det der er interessant ved den.
Hvad er der så ude med den?
Nej, men det er for at kan se oprindelsen. Prøv at se, at der er en helvedes masse omkring
Ved du hvad?
Malaysia, men ikke hvor den kommer fra.
Den kommer fra Brøndby.
This conference, my name is Nicoline No, and I'm a journalist, and I'll be the moderator for the rest of the program. First, we will have 2 speakers and then a panel on problems and solutions, possible solutions. But first, we would like to hear from Rune Gjengedal, and he is a manager of a farm. Yeah, and he will be telling us about IPM practices. So welcome, Rune.
Thank you very much. My name is Rune Gengedal. I'm the farm manager of Farm Bæringe. Maybe we can get the new slide. I think so. It's coming up here. Rune Gengedal, I'm the farm manager on Bæringe. This is my view every day. This is where we are living. I've been a farm manager for more than 40 years. This farm is located on three coastlines, so we can see Zealand here. We grow 2,500 hectares of arable land. It's a lot of seeding crops. We have all the traditional wheat. We have spinach for seed, grass seed for seed, or radish for seed. So we have a lot of seed production on our farm. We also have a little organic farming, 300 hectares in the backyards that we try and test on. So we try a little from every place. Does it work? Or is it slow? Not working. Now it's on. Super. It's the farm Bæringe went into IPM management in 2020, and this is the second period we are in the program. The main stakeholders is 4 farms: pig farm, cattle farm, the CA farm, and us as the seeding farm. We have the seed production. We are together with SEGES, the main stakeholders, and of course, the supporting stakeholders. We have the ministry, farm advisors, the universities, farmers and students. And every farm has got a co-innovation group. In our farm, it's a seed company that helps us. And of course, all this is about education and cooperation. It needs to go back to my workshop, this one. The toolbox, you talked about the toolbox in IPM, is all about biology and technology. The toolbox that we use on our farm is, of course, crop rotation is the most important thing, and I will tell you about that later. We work with cultivation techniques, plowing, not plowing, testing what is working. We always work with healthy varieties, and in this setup, we have worked with mixtures of seed, especially in wheat. So in wheat, we mix seeds. So we have 3 variations, and that works very good, and we can decrease fungus spraying on these fields. We spray as needed. That means we use every tool, we look at the field, and we are a lot of the time in the field. We use row cropping as one of the things, and we use row cultivation and mechanical cleaning, especially spinach for seed. Of course, we use all the one and decision-making tools that we can find, and SEGES is helping us a lot to use them. Of course, digitalization in farming is going this way at the moment. So everything we work with is digital. And we have got a lot of tools that we're trying to use and put into farming today. And the one thing in the bottom, education and training, that's maybe one of my most important things to talk about. on the farm. We are about 14 people at the farm at the moment. 4 of them are students. 5 of them is in the new group, techniques, expert nerds, as we call them, and experts in the top level. Every day we work with biology, weather, technology, and people. And it's that mixture that makes it fun, and where you can turn and push to everything. And we are working with the new generation. At the farm now we have 3 under education and 1 girl on school at the moment. That's very important to look into. And I talked about using digital tools, and that will help us a lot in the future, but don't trust them. Test them, test them, and test them. It's easy to see on the screen that works, but you need to test it and verify. That's maybe one of the biggest problems we have today. We believe that it works. Of course it works, but remember to test them. And for that, you need educated people. Yeah, biology. And the farm is, of course, the most important thing going. Crop rotation, why do we do that? This is 10-year planning for the fields. We put in barley twice, and why do we do that before putting in grass seed? It's to make the fields clean. So it's important for us to not just grow barley or wheat before grass, make them clean by using barley. And then we have different types of grass seeds, red fescue, tall fescue, ryegrass, and so on and on. And we grow that for 2 years, 1 or 2 years, and then we have peas for consumption, spinach, or other vegetable plants that we make seed out of. It's making seeds that we are best at. Then after that, winter wheat or hybrid wheat for seed, hybrid rye for seed, and then canola, wheat, and then it grows. So you see here, 10 years, there's a lot of planning in doing this. Also working with biology. We tried in this setup testing. We had a problem with some small bug called flea beetle that's destroying our rapeseed fields in the autumn, and it eats all of them. We use companion crops to try to tease them, to move them over into another. We use radish here, and we try to make them eat that, but it doesn't work. They stay in the oilseed rape. Just to tell you, we work with it, but it's not working every day. Using technology on the farm, we tried with these things. It's eco-botic hour. It works fantastic in the field. It's spot sprays, as you see here, is cameras in the front, and nozzles, the red ones, can spray very precise in the field. It works fantastic. The plan was here to get one weed, we caught another one. So we had to learn it. One thing that works today, we use AR-driven drone sprayers or drone technology. Years ago in 2020, we started testing drone technology on our farm with special cameras. It was very expensive and complicated, and we caught 20 terabytes of data just to find out how to do it in the fields. Today, a small company found out that with very small JPG pictures, you can put into an AI program and then test what you take of pictures in the air. And we send it to Aarhus and get it back, put it into our crop manager program, and send it out to the sprayer. That works. You asked about it, and now it works. And And this is when companies, small companies, big companies work together and makes it work. But it needs a lot of training. Technology we also use. You see the meadow grass where we spray between the crops, so we don't spray the whole crop. That's together with RTK and camera technique for spraying in grass seed. It works very good, but the level of chemical use is not jumping down that much as we hope. Hybrid spinach, this is a clean field. Some of the chemicals used in spinach are banned now, so we haven't got the same clean fields as we have here. We use chemical cleaning for that and mechanical cleaning. Yep. All this, the customers want clean seed and sustainable production. That means we need to use all the management we can deliver. The entire supply chain must work together. There's no room for mistakes. If you make a mistake, you go maybe 3 years back because your field will so be infected with the wrong crops. We have a new discipline on our farm. It's not into the Olympics, but it's coming. Dry training, train in the backyard with all the technology, and it takes much more time than it did just 2 years ago. But there's a lot of training and a lot of work for the testing. And we've become very dependent on our partners, and it's very, very expensive treatment. So it needs large area. So that's also important.
Yeah.
Battery closed. Sorry. Long-term planning is important. We work with biology and technology. The Danish model works. And what is the Danish model? It's where university farmers work together and they can understand each other. Skilled colleagues are essential. That's for everywhere. But remember farming. That's where it's very important. Education on all levels. So keep on educating wherever you are. And curiosity is important for being a test farm or innovation farm as we are. And most important, that create goals. Yeah.
Thank you, Rune.
Thank you.
We can see that integrated pest management is highly technological and not a very complex area, not very easily done. And even though it's part of the Sustainable Use Directive, some might say that many farmers in Denmark are really using integrated pest methods. So thank you for this. If there's a question, maybe 2 questions, we take them together and then you can answer them afterwards. Yeah.
Need a politician.
Politician. Okay.
Okay.
Well, and then afterwards up here.
That's correct. Formal like a general for it's about population because as old as I am, it was common knowledge in farming. The system its obligation or to use your experience to be used in the and how is it into this system and their advice to other farmers because I think it's well that that's the lesson.
One more question here. You had one? Yes. We're just getting the mic, and very briefly, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Interesting, but I was just wondering, from our point of view as water supplies, in terms of pesticide reduction, what figures are we talking about? Thank you.
Yeah, of course, I was waiting for this. But you can see it on the ministry, they make a report every year of what we're doing. So I could put some numbers in here, but it was not correct. It was like orange and pears. And so, of course, I think by using this IPM, we can go down in using pesticides, but we are increasing at the moment. But then we get some new pesticides. No, we lose some pesticides. And then what do we do after that? So we are into a new future. So I cannot tell you, you can see the figures on the home side.
For education?
And for education, I think we work with that every day. SIGAS is very good at working with it and taking young people into and working with RPM. And of course, crop rotation is important, and we always know that. But it's more complicated today than ever. When we grow, for example, white clover, it's a big problem having white clover in organic or conventional growing. Last year, we had 50 kilos in the organic production and 480 kilos of. And why are we having that? That's because in some areas we have grown clover for too long time, maybe. And that's about rotation. And in organic, it's a problem. So we have to move it out in other areas. So it's not black and white or green or red, but you have to work with it all of the time.
Yeah.
I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Rune Jengdal, for talking today. Give him a hand. Next up is Berit Strandberg, and you are the senior researcher of the Institute of Ecoscience of Aarhus University, and you'll talk about pesticides and biodiversity.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll give you time.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for being invited here to talk about pesticides and biodiversity. And no, that's the wrong direction. Here we go. Yes, as it was said, I'm a senior researcher at Aarhus University, and I'm going to share knowledge about effects of pesticides on biodiversity. As Don said, we know everything. But we should also be aware then that there is a toxic effect because pesticides are actually designed to be toxic. They are designed to field. So it's not so surprising that they do their job. But the problem is that besides from that, killing plants if they are weeds in the field, pests, diseases, then exactly the same kind of organisms, they are actually the targets. So therefore we have kind of problems with products. And I'd also want to mention a small thing about this using of the wording in the legislation, in the management. It's calling pesticides for plant protection product. Actually, they are not protecting plants. They are killing most of the plants to some extent, or having a kind of effect. They might be crop protection products. So that's just for a slight remark. And when we're talking about non-target organisms, definition, EFSA, which covers this situation, as you see here on the diagram. Target are those found outside of the field. It's called the off-field situation. They might be exposed to pesticides both by direct overspray, which only covers for a short zone next to the field, and then in the spray drift, or pesticides that moves out of the field, mainly drift, but also runoff to water resources. And how much do pesticides is actually reaching non-target organisms? There's a general estimation of the fractions that reach this off-field conditions of 3 to 5% of the usage, and which holds for many different crops. But if they are used aerial application as is done for example, soybean production, the drift raises up to 20 to 60%. So quite some part of the pesticides leave the field in order to. Oh, it's not working again. I think it needs. Maybe
minute.
Maybe. For example. Now it works. You should just stand there. When looking at this drift, we rarely monitor it. We use models to calculate the amount of drift reaching off-field conditions. And for many years, EFSA and other bodies has used this Gansenmeyer-Vautman model, and but it was realized that it underestimated the spray drift up to 69% of the situation was gave an underestimate, and therefore they this year came up with a new model that reduced the fraction that was underestimated. Now I will go to the field, to the off-field conditions. We heard this morning from Lisbeth that insects are not doing good. And this study, I guess all of you have heard about it. It's a German study about reduction in biomass of flying insects in the natural area in Germany, in Natura 2000 sites. And these data were collected with some traps. You see them on the photos, some traps where the insects fly into, and they are trapped into a small bottle where they filled with ethanol, and then they sample the insect and count the numbers and weigh them and identify them. And what they realized was that over a close to 30 years period from the beginning of the or the end of the 1980s and up to recently, we had this dramatic decline in insect biomass. But together with that, we actually also have a similar decline in the diversity, in the biodiversity. This study has not been talked so much about, but actually it is not only a biomass decline, it's also a diversity decline. So the species numbers are declining, and the abundance, as you see on this figure, are declining as well. And what's the reason for this? People began thinking of. And the main change, even though it has not been documented in these publications, the main change over these 30 years was the agricultural intensification. The area of land was more or less the same in the late 1900 and today, but the intensification of the production was really changed over that time. And therefore, a group of German researchers actually was redoing this insect sampling. They went out again and sampled, put up these tents and collected insects in the same areas, in natural areas. And what did they find? They found that there was actually 47 currently used pesticides in these ethanol bottles with the insects. Insects was not dying from that. They were able to fly into the traps and become collected, and they were carrying pesticides with them. And on average, they were carrying 16.7 pesticides into each of the samples. So there's a lot of pesticides reaching even conditions long away from the field condition in the off-field situation. Another German study showed was sampling, passive sampling of air all over Germany in off-field conditions, including organic fields, including also nature reserves and other off-field situations. And they found more than 100 different pesticides in these samples, and also pesticides in concentrations that definitely have effects on living organisms. So these results are of course relevant both for biodiversity, but also for all the services relying on biodiversity. We heard...
To ask you to put it closer to your mouth.
Okay, I try.
Thank you.
That's much better. I can... Yes, the diversity of species is important for the services that can be found in these systems. And as you said, you are using IPM technology, you are relying on biology, but you should also be relying on diversity, on the ecological interaction of the species. And yeah, the results, of course, also is relevant for organic farming that need to document that their product is free of pesticides, and that could definitely not be said. I will jump fast to a few more things. Yeah. So I just turn to some of our studies of effects of pesticides on the reproduction of some water insects that are having a terrestrial adult state. And these insects are by far more sensitive than the honeybee, which is today measured when we are doing testing. And what we see is, like we do see on humans, that the reproductive endpoint is definitely sensitive. This species was not able to lay egg or do their mating behavior when they were exposed to sublethal concentrations of pesticides. Yes. And we also see the same kind of effects when we are looking at plants. Plant flowering, the plant reproduction is also affected by pesticides. Here, the herbicide glyphosate reduces the flowering, both the number of flowers, but also delay flowering period and shorten it. And we find the same kind of effects if we go to the field and compare organic and conventional hedgerow vegetation. We see without pesticide exposure that here is represented by organic farming, that more species flower at higher intensity and plants flower early and for a longer period without pesticides. So we, regardless, I just have to
2 minutes. That's fine.
Have a few more important messages to give, because we also see indirect effect when the plant, when the flowering is reduced, then it of course affects the insects that rely on the plant flowering, the pollinators, but also many other insects. And we have seen that both the vegetation rate and the diversity of insects visiting the plants are reduced if the plant is exposed to low dosages of glyphosate. Such effects translate into food web effects, as shown on the templates to the left in the dias, and the effect, of course, is reduced as you go up in the food web. But another thing that might happen in the food web is a bioaccumulation of the pesticides as you go up in the food web. And a very recent review that have looked at effects of pesticide of arthropods, some kind of insects exposed to pesticides have shown that there's an accumulation from the insects and up in the food chains. So we have definitely not only effects on the target organisms, which is what we are going for, but also many different effects on the non-target part of the biodiversity. So pesticides may have significant effects on non-target organisms. Both lethal and sublethal concentrations impact the organisms. Many different endpoints might be affected: species resistance, community composition, behavior, reproduction, and also food web effects are seen. So pesticides thereby affect ecosystem services, which we rely on if we're going for an ecological intensification, not agricultural intensification maybe. So, and then the final thing is that we might underestimate the number of pesticides and the concentration reaching natural areas.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Beate. You did very well. That was a marathon. Well done.
Also felt a bit like haven't done a marathon.
Yeah. But you made your messages. That was very clear. I want to hear if there's a single question for Beate before we move on. There's a hand down here.
Hi, I'm Laura Bemering, and I have a question regarding pesticide use on flowers, because a lot of the research focuses normally on pesticide use of crops, but I understand that also flowers, like horticulture, and then eventually also consumer use of flowers that have been treated with pesticides are an enormous effect on our biodiversity. And I was wondering, as a researcher, do you have any further insights in the differentiation between the effect of crops versus flowers or plants?
Yes, we need to make sure that we are not mixing up these effects on flowers, because I guess you're talking about horticultural plants, because what I was talking about when I was talking about effects to flowers, it was a reduction in the flowering intensity and the flowering period and such things. And those kind of effects might be seen both on horticultural plants or on crops, and we might see the effects long after the plants is actually exposed to the pesticides. When we're talking about horticultural plants, many of them are grown in contained conditions where many other pesticides are used than we use for the infield conditions, and many of them also have quite toxic profiles, so they are not good for the environment at all. But as they are used for the contained conditions, they might not have this spray drift situation to the surroundings. But some horticultural flowers are also grown outdoor. So from that kind of production, there will also be spray drift and effects on surroundings.
Thank you so much, Beate Strandberg, for coming and making us wiser on this. Then we have the panel, and I would like to ask the participants of the panel to take a seat up here. And we'll have to cut 5 minutes of the panel discussion because we are on a tight schedule here. But for the next 45 minutes, we'll look for solutions. Please just take a seat and I'll introduce you. Yes, thank you. We will now have discussion on alternative solutions in plant protections. We've heard a lot about the risks from pesticides and that we have TFA everywhere in soil and water and rain and human blood, which are terrifying news. We would also have to find out if there are any more obstacles or problems in the use of pesticides. I would like to introduce you. From this side, we have Sibylle Kid from Organic Denmark. She's Head of Agricultural and Food Policy, that's correct, yeah. Lea Frimann Hansen, we heard her before, Head of Department of the Danish Ministry of Environment and Gender. Then we have Rikke Lundsgaard. She is from the Danish Society of Nature, and she's a Senior Agricultural Policy Advisor. Then we have Rune Haugaard Sørensen from the Danish Beekeeper Organization, and he's the head of the secretariat. I can't say that word. It's Danish. We have Bo Lindhardt. He's the Director of Water and IT and Automation at the water company Novafos, and he's also part of the Inter-Water Alliance, which is an alliance of 9 water companies in Denmark are working together on solving problems with pollution and TFA. And then we have Angelika Lysimbrou from Greece. We heard her, she's Head of Science and Policy at PAN. Some of you have said yes to 2 minutes to explain your area further. And first, I would really like to hear from you, Rune Haugaard Sørensen, because you're actually the advocate of these non-target organisms. Can you tell us a bit more about this? I understand that there are around 300 species of bees in Denmark alone. What is the problem with the use of pesticides today?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in general, we actually focus on pollinators in general. And we have not an aim that we are against pesticides in general. We focus on the pesticides that is a problem for the pollinators. During the last 5 years, we have had a project running together with colleagues from 27 EU countries. And we have made analysis from the beehives, and we found out that the bees are in contact with more than 40 different pesticides in Denmark only. That's a very lot. What we don't know about is how it affects the bees. But as Beate just mentioned, somebody thinks that we should only focus on insecticides. But no, it's not only the insecticides that is a problem for the bees. We have fungicides that also remove the good fungi from the beehives that is very important for the bees. And we also have the herbicides that reduce the number of flowers around the fields. So all kind of pesticides is really a problem. So yeah, and I mean, in a conference like this one today, we have heard about IPM. I really need to hear a bigger focus on ecological infrastructure. It's so important also if we want to make a more sustainable farming. So that's something that I really need on a conference today.
Thank you so much, Rune. I think maybe Sibylle Kid from Organic Denmark could tell us a bit more about looking into other solutions than IPM, because you're working with the field of organic farming. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that the IPM presentation did also present all the solutions that we do apply in organic, except that we do not apply those pesticides. So what I would like to emphasize is that I would like to echo what Rune here has just been saying about the green infrastructure that is really important in order to be able to apply another system than the pesticides, because it is in the green infrastructure that our helpers, they are living. those organisms that help us to be able to farm a system without the use of pesticides. That was also what Beate, she just presented in her presentation. So, when I was preparing my 2 minutes, I would go through why pesticide in general is a problem and not only PFAS pesticides. But I think the presentations that we have had today, they so clearly demonstrate the problems with pesticides, except that they didn't mention the healthy soils. And we, at EU level, we have just adopted a regulation on healthy soils. And one of the problems when you talk about healthy soils, that is that we apply pesticides. There was a European study taking place, and according to this study, when the soils that they've been looking at, they found pesticide residues in 88% of the fields, and in 46% of those fields, it was at a level that was harmful to the living organisms in the soil. That means the organisms that makes this soil healthy. And that is a problem that has neither been covered today.
Thank you. So you really feel this is an overlooked problem? Yeah. But you are concerned with all pesticides, not only TFA. I think there are other areas where TFA might be the biggest concern, or PFAS in general. And this is in water. Bo Lindhardt, I had a talk with you before, and I think you could maybe explain this a bit further.
Yes, I'm responsible for making drinking water for 300,000 people here north of Copenhagen. And we have been looking for pesticide for the last 25 years, and I find a small amount of pesticide in the groundwater. But in the last 5 years, we have begun to find also TFA, and we find it in a really high concentration. And I think the major problem with the TFA is that there are a number of sources. And I think it's really important that we have this holistic view on the problem of TFA. TFA is from the pesticide, as we have heard today, and I think that's a great step to ban some of them. But we have also all the other chemicals, special the gases from refrigerators. I think that really is important that we've got banning this fourth generation of freon gases, because if we not do anything with this, we'll have really serious problems in the next 20 years, and we will not be able to dilute us out of the problem. So I think in that concept, it's really important to have a holistic view on the problem.
Thank you so much, Bo. Angeliki, I don't know if you have any comments, but as you did a lot in your presentation, but you are the expert on this area within...
I mean, I can echo what's been said, and I was very pleased to hear in the previous presentation to highlight that the agricultural model that is based on pesticides, that the pesticides are designed to kill living organisms, and the more we advance in science, the more see that they're not targeting only target pests, but they also target other species, including us, humans, and they contaminate also water resources and surface water, rich in groundwater, as we've seen now with TFA. So it is an agricultural model that belongs in the past. You know, now we have knowledge, and hopefully with biology and technology and so on, and also talking to each other. No, we see also farmers speaking to each other is really helpful, but also being supported by member states, so they cannot do this alone. We all need to be, like the countries must support financially the farmers in this transition. And it's the only way forward. I mean, if we're talking about food security, we're talking about protection of our soil, protection of biodiversity, we're talking about protection of pollination and of clean water. So we are talking about moving away from chemical pesticides.
Thank you, Angeliki. I would like to turn my attention to Rikke, because we're talking about a lot about pollinators and clean water and stuff, but are there other aspects in nature that we have overlooked?
I think that when we look at the whole question of pesticides, I'm not going to answer your question immediately, but when we look at the whole question of pesticides, I think that generally here in Denmark, but also internationally, we exaggerate the importance, the economic importance. We underestimate the problems, and we also don't look enough at the alternatives. So what we're doing with a conference like today, we isolate one problem, which is one particular group of pesticides and one particular problem which is the water. But there's also the other things. There's biodiversity, like both Lisbeth and Beza have been into the insects and insecticides, but also indirect things from, for example, herbicides that kill off the plants and therefore also clean off the wild flora, which is important for things like pollinators. So it's all integral systems, and we forget about that if we look only at one substance or one group of substances. I've also been involved together with Angeliki, for example, in an anti-glyphosate campaign Europe-wise, and again, it's not enough to look at one single substance. And it's also all related to not just pesticides, but it's also related to the whole thing that Rune is into about the ecological corridors, the ecological landscape, the whole landscape elements, and the lack of nature, the lack of corridors, the lack of cohesiveness in nature, and also to do with the whole nitrogen aspect. At the moment in this building, they are talking about nitrogen regulation, and nitrogen is it's even more integral to intensive farming. But when we use nitrogen, we also somehow automatically need more pesticides, or at least fungicides and so on. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole integral system of all of this, but we can't just solve one problem at a time, because we then just isolate it. And so we need a systemic approach, which it's very interesting to hear about the IBM, but like one or two of the people here were saying, we also need to even further that thinking so that we can look into, for example, organic agriculture, which I think basically is the answer to all the questions that we really need solved in terms of farming and the environment. So, I mean, whereas it is interesting to sit here today, it's also important that we involve the whole systemic thinking in looking at how we solve the whole problem of using pesticides in our surroundings.
Thank you so much, Rikke. What I can think is that we do have risk assessments. We do have the EPA. Isn't this concern maybe a bit over-exaggerated? We have regulations. And I would like to ask you, Lea Freeman, what do you think about the balance of the situation for the pesticides that we approve and use today and authorize, and the ones that we decide not to use anymore, like, for example, the TFA substances? Is it a proper balance?
I think that over the years we have banned a lot of pesticides, and it's not. It is just one way what is going on. It's not only looking on pesticide, but as also said that we also have to look into other chemicals, and as was said before, there's other sources for the environment. So we also have to look into other things than pesticides. That in the whole holistic area, and at the development on the pesticide, as I also heard Claus saying from the Commission, that we have to look into more biosolutions on what to do, and maybe some of the substances used in the ecological farming and how they are doing without pesticides. And then, of course, we need to act on what food we want to have on the stores in Denmark, because if we only use other ways of agriculture, we also have to think on what we actually want to buy in our stores, because there will be some crops will not be available. We have to look into that if that's the.
I mean, we have to accept this as a society if we.
Yeah, the people have to also take the consequences of if they choose that. And I think that we also have to look into other areas where we protect the environment, not only for the pesticides, but also and for the drinking water, where we have areas where we don't have to use pesticides, and maybe some areas where we don't have to use nitrogen, areas where we protect some areas according to protect the groundwater, but also have nature areas, and the policy about that is also one thing we have to look into. So the whole thing is very complex to have a better world in that area. So I don't think we cannot pick up one single thing and say we solve this and then it will be much better all over. We have to look into several areas, and that is actually what is so complex, because before we have...
So it's a huge and ongoing...
It's ongoing work, and I've been working with this in many years, and I think that we make progress. We are coming on with different things, but I mean, it is very complex, and there's many years work further on.
Thank you so much, Leah. I have a question for you, because you said before that in Denmark, you made the decision about not renewing the authorization for the TFA pesticides, because you said you believe that you are actually obligated to do this. But I have a question, because we still have products in Denmark with other active compounds that we have a suspicion that they also break down to TFA.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is it 3 or 5 active compounds that we use in Denmark still? Why have we not looked into taking the authorization away from them?
Actually, there's 5 active substances, and we have asked, the Danish EPA has asked the Commission to re-evaluate those substances, because we don't have the data in Denmark. So if you take the regulation on pesticides, you have to have not only a suspicion, you also have some data to say, we want to act on this. Normally, it's the pesticides producers who have the data, and they are obligated to provide the data. And if we should ask the pesticides producer to bring up data on this issue, we have to go to the Commission and ask for re-evaluation of those substances.
So you say the road is very long to do this?
I mean, that's the way we can do it. We cannot in Denmark just take out suspicion and then act on it. It's not how the regulation is done. But when we have knowledge from research program and other things, then the Danish EPA can act. But before that, we have to rely on the system and ask the Commission to take up the active substances and ask the pesticides producers to bring up the data, because it's their responsibility.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a question for the panel. If we stop using pesticides and reduce it a lot, we heard about the IPM project from Rune Gengedal, and I heard about other projects from France that were being overwhelmed by weeds, not going very well. Of course, it needs to be tested. But I have a question for you, and I don't know who you can mark if you want to answer it, but what about food security? Can we secure food if we regulate pesticides? We take that first.
We don't have a problem with food security. I mean, we use 75% of our agricultural land to feed animals. So if we reduce that amount a tiny little bit, we'll still have plenty of food. So it's not a question of food security at all. And anybody who claims that as a reason to use pesticides, they are on a wrong track. There can be many other reasons to want to use pesticides, farm economy and so on, but it's nothing to do with food security.
Thank you for that. I saw you were also raising a hand, Rune.
Yeah. Leah mentioned that we also have to think about what kind of products we want to have in our stores.
Yeah.
And yes, we have to think about that, because a lot of the products that we have in our stores, they need to have pollinators if we want to have them there. And the case is not that we certainly lose all our pollinators. No, that's not the case. But we lose more and more pollinators. And when we do that, it's certainly not it's certainly not possible to. It's certainly not economical to produce these crops anymore. One example is 50 years ago we had a big production of red clover seeds, but we do nearly not produce any red clover seeds anymore because they need long-thorned bumblebees to be pollinated, and we do have less and less of these bumblebees. So that's just one example that when we lose pollinators, we also lose products.
So we can't spray us out of that problem?
No.
No, okay. I saw you were saying something, but I also want you were talking about an over-exaggeration of the economic importance. Is it in relation to this?
I think I can give the room for other questions because we had two splendid replies.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I want to know what do you see as the main obstacles? Where are the areas that we should put in our effort as a society, as a national state, as an EU, both to protect waters and to reduce further risk? Does any of you have, you want to say something, Sibylle?
Yes, then I would like to say something, but because I think really the biggest obstacle is that we lack the recognition that we do not need those pesticides, and that the pesticides are really harmful to our environment and all those aspects that we have been through today. So, and before we get this recognition, it's difficult really to act with force to make results. But I would also say that we do really have some tools in the toolbox to react, because we do have the organic farming, which is a certified system where we do have certain plant protection products, but they have a totally different origin. And they are all of a natural origin, and it's really strictly, the access to use them is really strictly regulated, and we do not allow any herbicides, which is really important. And when we talk so much about IPM, I cannot avoid to ask, what is that? Because there's no certified system on IPM, and who is applying more pesticides than necessary? So it's only organic which guarantee what is going, or what is happening. But then I would also make attention to that we do actually have a very strong tool apart from organic, and that is the Common Agricultural Policy. We do have a chance to, instead of paying direct income support for farmers just to produce food, we could decide that those money are paid to farmers according to their performance in respect of securing clean drinking water, biodiversity in the farmland, healthy soils, safe food without pesticide residues. Because if we are going that way, we will gradually get rid of the pesticides.
Thank you so much. So a matter of regulation. Yeah. I see you are raising a hand, Angeliki.
I just want to add a couple of things, because for example, we are phasing out pesticides. It's been more than 1 decade, and the crops yields have not gone down. I mean, we hear all the time, like they're saying, oh, food security, if we ban non-nicotinoids, people are going to go hungry. It's not true. I mean, we have alternatives. We have alternative methods, and we've seen from farmers that they have managed either to phase out completely pesticides or reduce them in very small amounts. We see really success stories, and we don't hear this enough. And also, when you have an advisory system, because we're talking about advisory systems for farmers to help them, but what do they advise them? Do they advise them to use a pesticide, or to use preventive methods based on the strict principles of IPM or agroecology as well, or organic farming? So this is because we it's important that the advice the farmers receive are advice that will help them to move away from pesticides. We didn't hear before, it was about resistant varieties. It might be that you have to change your farming system. You might change your crop, and all of this, we need to sit down together and discuss, to find these solutions. So the one point I wanted to make is we need to work together.
Yes, that was the same point that Lisbeth Knudsen made about the agencies.
Exactly.
But it seems that silo thinking is a major obstacle, and compartmentalization is a major obstacle for working with this area. So we have talked about regulation and informing farmers. I was wondering what is in the Sustainable Use Directive. What can we use from here? What can we take from here? And where can we do better? Do you have a answer to that, maybe, Lea?
The Sustainable Use Directive has to be transformed from the single member states into regulation. And not many member states have national goals on reducing pesticides. Not member states have done all the things which is stated in the SUD, but that was why the Commission tried to have a proposal on a substance use regulation, and unfortunately the Commission failed to have a proposal that could come true because of all the problems with the proposal. We were coming away in the council, but there was a lot of member states which has a lot of pressure from their countries. So actually, we moved a step back from the regulation and to the Sustainable Use Directive. And we haven't seen much from the Commission in enforcing this directive into the member states. I don't think that they are actually going to do it in light of the Commission at this moment.
Okay.
I'm expecting that the proposal in December will change a little bit in the Substance Use Directive because of the discussion about drones, because there's a ban of using drones to application of pesticides at this moment, and in some countries it is suggested to use drones for that purpose. I'm not sure that it will be a part of the proposal from the Commission, but it is actually what I have heard from the Commission in that part.
Will the EPA and do you think maybe the Danish presidency use their chance to speak on this matter?
It is too late because it will come in December, and it will be under the next presidency that it will going on, and that is we won't have a chance to have a lead in the discussions. But of course, then we are more free to.
Will they be vocal about it, do you think?
When we come to the 1st of January, we will be a member states. We are not presidency. Then, of course, we will take part of the council discussions on the proposal through the normal way, and we will also, of course, go to the parliament in Denmark with what we want to make pressure on in the proposal and so on. It's normal practice in that area, but we will have to see what the Commission is coming up with in the proposal and how they want. I'm not sure that it will be only in our view. It will be a common proposal with the food sector. It will be taking council discussion in another formation than the information. So we will have to see how it's go further in that area, but it will also have something with the food regulation. The Biotech Act is one of the discussion also, and the novel food regulation and so on. So
do you feel it will be?
It will be a common proposal for many different regulations.
Make it stronger, weaker.
It will make it more difficult to have a common position on, because there will be a lot of different things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we can say now that we need regulation. We need an economic incitement. We need education and maybe a political pressure. We heard from Dorte Skram from Denmark. There was a call for action and a call for solving this in partnership. And this is what we've heard. So organizations and agencies need to find a way to work together more. Very briefly. Yeah.
I think we also need some courage.
Courage.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, because I mean, for all these years, I mean, I do recognize that, of course, thank you so much.
Like I said, we need you online that we need courage as well.
We need courage as well, because I mean, I do recognize that, of course, in Denmark, we are progressive in regulating pesticides. Absolutely. And there's also a very good reason for that. And that is, as we've heard today, we get our water, our drinking water from our groundwater. So there's very good reason to protect it.
Yes.
And we have for many years been able to identify the particular areas we need to protect more than others in order to be able to have clean water also in the future. The water near the extraction places, what we call BNBO.
BNBO, yeah.
And despite the fact that this is about 10,000 hectares, thereabouts, out of 2.5 million hectares, it has been extremely difficult to be able to take these areas out and say to the farmers, you get compensation for not spraying pesticides on these areas. And in that sense, we can, if we did that, if we took 10,000 hectares out of 2.5 million hectares, we'd be able to protect something like 40% of the Danish drinking water. And we haven't been able to really implement that successfully because there's a lot of mist being poured over the discussion all the time that this is going to be too expensive. And so we need some courage to confront the farming interests.
But what you're talking about is political courage.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to make clear, we do have 12 minutes left of the panel. And if there are questions, I would like to open up for them now. We have one here. Fourth row.
Thank you. From SINS. A lot of concerns, and as Dorte said, we need actions. And what I'm hearing is that you are talking about ecological infrastructure, biological substances, non-chemical solutions, economic incentives. I think everybody can agree about that, but how do we force it to happen? I need answers for that. I think in agriculture we are ready, but tell us what to do.
Thank you so much. That was an important question. And I think you were also talking about economy. Where does it come from? Yeah. I don't know if you have the courage to answer this. Sibylle, you raise your hand.
Yes, I would say as a starting point, I don't think it's true to say that the farm systems or the farmers or the farmer associations are ready to change their methods, because they really try to or avoid increased or more strict regulation, and they do neither fight for a real CAP reform, because what could make this happen? That is stronger regulation. That is another way of applying our common agricultural policy. Then it would happen immediately. So actually what we see is that we have farmer associations trying to combat that we will have a change.
Thank you. And Ron?
I have to agree with Sibylle. The farmers are not ready, so they have to be more open. And we have been asking to include ecological infrastructure in IPM for years now, and nothing have happened. So I'm looking forward to the next coming projects, also including ecological infrastructure in the IPM. And also we are looking at long-term technologies. It's also very important, but there's also some very easy things. We're still spraying flowering crops during the daytime in full sun when all the insects are very active.
What's the problem with that?
Yeah, when the insects are active in the flowering crops, we are going to spray them. Then they are also affected by the pesticides. So it's just one example on a very little thing that could help a lot.
Thank you. But do you recognize, Sibylle and the others, that the farmers actually working with IPM, trying to reduce the use of pesticides, are on the right way? There are obstacles, so they say, but very few farmers are actually working intensely to implement this. So can we recognize that, or? Yeah, Rikke?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really inspiring to hear the example today, but also with all the people who work with regenerative agriculture, who work with conservation agriculture, where they dramatically reduce the use of pesticides. Absolutely, and it's inspiring, and they get inspired to see what happens in the soil, richer soil, more insects, more life, and so on. And so there's certainly individuals out there, and what is very characteristic is that it's all the very able farmers. It's the capable farmers, the very well-educated farmers who are capable of implementing these methods. So absolutely applauding that. But what Paul Henning says, that the farmers are ready. I mean, every day in the farming news, when we discuss pesticides, now the PFAS ban, but also other bans, there's always this incredible persistent sing-song that we can't do without it. And it is really, I mean, it really isn't true. You know that we are trying to talk about how can we use it a little less. It's always no. And then when we document that it's not always a problem, not every year, not in every crop, and not in every area of the country, then this is not being taken seriously. So I don't buy the fact. I mean, it's only regulation really that helps.
Thank you. And Sibylle?
The presentation that we had today on the IPM, it was so clear that there was no attention to the green infrastructure. That is where those...
What do you mean? Can you explain a bit more? What is the green infrastructure?
Yeah, that is in non-farmed areas. That is part of the farmed area that gives room where the insects, the living organisms that should help us, the pollinators and the roads that helps us against the pests or whatever, where they should live and where they should collect their feed. There was no attention of the importance to have such areas within the farmed land. So that is really lacking. And what I experience when I make my work here on Christiansborg as well, I do really have a problem to protect the initiative that came from the Commission that you should have a minimum 4% of your farmed area reserved to that kind of area to help those helpers to be there. So I think there's this blind spot.
Yeah, and the 4% land fallow was actually part of the proposal in the EU and was
and now you say land fallow because in the initiative from the Commission it was directly in order to provide more give better conditions for biodiversity. It was not a requirement of fallow land. That was something it was changed into by the farm associations, and having fallow land, that is never popular. So that was really wise if we should make this an unpopular requirement. But what I do see is that concerning also the presentation that we had on IPM today, there's some kind of people are impressed by technologies. So it is attractive. Can you present, you could get new opportunities if we develop new technologies. That is always, that's always very exciting. So that actually collects it's easier to attract the attention from the farmers if you present new technology to them as an opportunity, rather than you should get to know, to understand the ecosystem dynamics. So of course we have groups of farmers that are ready to change what we do today, but I think it goes so slowly.
Thank you. So not enough answers. Are you have anything to say? That has to be very quick. Yeah.
So I think your talk is also like a sing-song, because Una and I went to France 2 years ago, and we visited a research plant with 200 hectares, trying to do all what you were saying. And after 5 years, they have not succeeded yet. And they had a lot of problems. You mentioned it, weeds and the insects from the corridors and so on. They didn't come to the fields and took care of the pests. So I think a proof of the concept, sorry to say it, and if you come up with that, I think most farmers will be ready.
Thank you.
I really would like to comment on
that. That has to be very shortly. Yes.
It really requires a lot of knowledge to apply a different system. It's not sufficient to provide some green infrastructure. If the distance to the middle of the field is too far, then those insects, they do not come. So you shouldn't make this mistake, not really to recognize that it requires so much. And it's easier to apply new technology, but I'm not against new technology. I think that is also part of the solution.
And what I can hear also is that maybe new partnerships with could emerge from this. We have a question in the back.
Thank you. From Transition Denmark, and this is to the question concerns the updated lists of the pollutants that should be monitored and limited in surface waters, which is the one hand a very great news, but on the other hand, they have very long transition period of time. So member states can be up to 20 years before they have to make this happen. So my question is that, do you in the ministry have plans or discussions going on how to implement early on, so we don't have to wait 20 years? This list includes also the TFA, but also other pesticides and pharmaceuticals and other chemicals as well. So this is this could be the right chemicals to look at to protect future drinking water.
Thank you. Do you think you can give a 30-second answer to that?
I mean, the list on the priority substances, they have to come into force. Of course, it has to be published and so on, but it has to come into force in 27 before the next plan for the Water Framework Directive. So after that, member states should measure it. It is when you should have the goal is more out in the future, but you have to start measuring them when they are in force in 27. So this is not, it is not in 20 years you have to measure them. You have to measure them in 27. And then, of course, you have to look into if you are in compliance with those data and if you have to make some new regulation to come into force with those. And for that, you have a transition period for many years. And that is the same as for all chemicals in the Water Framework Directive. So they will come into force in 27 if it is when it's published. I mean, the Parliament has decided it and the Council has agreed upon it, but the Commission have to publish this and so on. So it has to come into force, and then in 27, before the next period for the Water Framework Directive, you have to start measuring them. So you have to find out where they are.
Thank you. We could continue for a long time, I can feel, but unfortunately we are out of time. I would like to ask Bo Lindhardt, you didn't have much to say, if you have a closing remark. Just to wrap it all up. No. Yeah, it's on.
It's important to protect and try to find a priority where we should set in all our effort, because we have so many chemicals we depend on. So we have to make this priority list, so we cannot fight against everything.
Thank you. So what I hear is priority, political pressure, political courage, measurement, economy, and maybe solutions in partnerships. Thank you. And please give a hand to the panel. Then we will have the last remark from Klaus Jørgensen and Christian E. And then after this conference is over, and thank you very much.
So thank you for this very interesting day. Thank you for very good presentations and a good debate. I think as one of the organizers, what I take with me home is that we have a tremendous problem of pesticides. We also have solutions. And of course, organic agriculture is a very central part of the solution, and we should have much more organic agriculture. At the same time, we must recognize that we have to live with conventional farming for many years still, and therefore we also have to set up demands for conventional farming. And the Sustainable Use Directive could be a part of these demands, including the integrated pest management principles. But this requires that it is really mandatory requirements, and there's supervision, control of that these requirements are fulfilled. I heard some contradiction between the presentation from Klaus Behrendt from the Commission, who very clearly said the implementation of integrated pest management has not been completed, and it is unacceptable. On the other hand, we heard from the Danish ministry that Danish farmers fulfill the IPM criteria. From my point of view, this cannot be true until we have a proper supervision and control, and we can document the effects of using the IPM principles. And my last remark would be what has been said here many times, and I support that the ecological ecosystem is a very important element that we must strengthen in future. So these might be my final words. And I think Klaus did not come back. No, he had a meeting in the Climate Commission. So there's a good excuse for that. But then I'll just say thank you for attending, and I hope you all got more clever from this day. I think I did. So thank you.
Ja,